Good evening, everyone. It's a big crowd tonight, so I'll start off by saying welcome, friends and neighbors of Meridian. I would like everybody to be on their best behavior tonight. So it's not a pep rally, so please no thunderous applause, boos, cheers, or anything else along those lines. So we're all adults here. Let's get along like adults, present like adults, and this should go fine this evening. With that, welcome to Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for September 1st, 2022. This time I would like to call the meeting to order. The commissioners who are present for this evening meeting are at City Hall and on Zoom. We also have staff from the city attorney and clerk's office, as well as the city planning department. If you are joining us on Zoom this evening, we can see that you are here. You may observe the meeting, however, your ability to be seen on screen or in talk will be muted. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, you will be unmuted and then be able to comment. Please note that we cannot take questions until the public testimony portion. If you have a process question during the meeting, please email cityclerk@meridiancity.org and they will reply as quickly as possible. If you simply want to watch the meeting, we encourage you to watch this streaming on the city's YouTube channel, and you can access that at meridiancity.org/live. With that, let's begin with the roll call. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Stoddard. Here. Commissioner Lorcher. Here. Commissioner Yearsley.
Here.
Commissioner Seal.
Here.
Absent are Commissioners Wheeler and Grace.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Files number H 2022-0020 and H 2022-0045 will be open for the sole purpose of continuing to a regularly scheduled meeting. File number H 2022-0055 will be withdrawn. Just for reference, that's for Tessera Ranch, Kingstown Subdivision, and the Chipotle drive-through. Those items that will appear only for those purposes. So if there's anybody here tonight to testify for those applications, we will not be taking testimony on them this evening. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, so motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the consent agenda. And we have one item on the consent agenda, which is to approve the minutes of the August 18th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, motion carries. All right, at this time, I'd like to briefly explain the public hearing process. We will open each item individually and begin with the staff report. Staff will report their findings on how the item adheres to our comprehensive plan and unified development code. After staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward to present their case and respond to staff comments. They will have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant is finished, we will open the floor to public testimony. Each person will be called on only once during the public testimony. The clerk will call the names individually of those who have signed up on our website or in the back in advance to testify. You will then be unmuted in Zoom, or you come to the microphones in chambers. You will need to state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission. If you have previously sent pictures or a presentation for the meeting, will be displayed on the screen, and you or the clerk will run the presentation. If you have established that you are speaking on behalf of a larger group like an HOA, and let me be clear about this, where others in the hearing are willing to give their time to you, meaning they give up their ability to speak because you will speak for them, you will be given 10 minutes. Otherwise, as an individual, you will have 3 minutes to speak. After all those who have signed up in advance have spoken, we will invite any others who may wish to testify. If you wish to speak on the topic, you may come forward in chambers or in the Zoom app, press raise hand button. Or if you're only listening on a phone, press *9 and your name will be called. If you're listening on multiple devices, such as a computer and a phone, please be sure to mute those extra devices so we do not experience feedback and we can hear you clearly. When you are finished, if the commission does not have questions for you, you will return to your seat in chambers or be muted on Zoom, and you will no longer have the ability to speak. And please remember, we will not call on you a second time. After all testimony has been heard by the applicant, the applicant will be given another 10 minutes to come back and respond. When the applicant is finished responding to questions and concerns, we will close the public hearing. The commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss and hopefully be able to make final decisions or recommendations to city council as needed. So at this time, I would like to open the public hearing for item number H 2022-0020 for continuance to October 20th, 2022. For open, so if somebody would like to give a motion on that.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to motion that item number H 2022-0020 request a continuance for October 20th. Anything else?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we continue file number H 2022-0020 to the date of October 20th, 2022. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, motion carries. Okay, so we will now open Kingstown subdivision file number H 2022-0045 for continuance to September 15th, 2022.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lorcher, go ahead.
I motion that Kingston subdivision H 2022-0045 has a continuance for September 15th.
Been moved in second. Oh, it's been moved in. That's okay, Steve. It's been moved and seconded that Kingstown subdivision H 2022-0045 be continued to the date of September 15th, 2022. All in favor, say aye.
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 No opposed, motion carries. Can I get a motion for Chipotle drive-through H 2022-0055, recognizing their intent to withdraw?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lorcher, go ahead.
I motion that H 2022-0055 for Chipotle to withdraw. Second.
Been moved and second to recognize the applicants withdraw for file number H 2022-0055 Chipotle drive-through. All in favor, say aye.
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 No opposed, motion carries. Okay. Now, at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing for item number H 2022-0047 for Bridge Tower multifamily, and we will begin with the staff report.
Sorry, Chair, we're trying to get the presentation pulled up here. One moment, please.
That's okay. Thank you much. Bill, if you'd like me to play the role of IT, I can simply ask you if you were rebooted. There we go. There we go.
It's going to be one of those nights, I believe.
Absolutely. That's all right.
I want to thank everyone in the audience for their patience this evening. We'll try to get down to business sometime tonight. So appreciate
Perfect.
everyone being here as well. We don't usually have a crowd that's this large. So it's always, devils are in the details, right? So Mr. Chair, members of the commission, happy to be here this evening. I am presenting on behalf of Joe Dotson, who was the associate planner who worked on this project. He's lucky enough to be on vacation tonight. And so I have graciously accepted the task of presenting this project to you this evening. So the one and only item on the agenda tonight is the Bridge Tower multifamily conditional use permit. The subject property is currently zoned R15 in the city. It consists of 16.6 acres of land, and it's located near the northwest corner of McMillan and 10 Mile Road. This property has quite a bit of history on it. I've been with the city for over 15 years. I initially started with this project back in 2008. And that's where I met with the previous developer. He had a different vision for the property. At the time that he came through, he processed a comprehensive plan map amendment for this property in which he changed this whole entire area to what we call mixed use community. Under that mixed use designations, we envision three distinct land uses, including a mix of residential, commercial, and office uses on the subject property, potentially even industrial. If you recall, in 2020, the previous developer tried to come forward with a plan, try to rezone some of this property and convert some of that commercial back to residential because they thought there wasn't a market for it. You guys heard that application. You essentially recommended denial of that application, and he heard you loud and clear and decided to withdraw the application before it moved on to city council. He felt that he could make that zoning work. He since has now sold this property to the new developer in which they purchased the property. They bought the property with a current development agreement that currently is on this property. Recently, they took a DA modification before city council. Their concept plan was different than the one we're talking about this evening. Ultimately, council made a determination that it wasn't consistent, and they recommended denial of that development agreement modification. So the applicant contacted staff after that hearing and asked, we went through the DA with our city attorney's office. They asked, we have R15 zone property. If we went back to the drawing board, redesigned the site to be more consistent with the concept plan of the development agreement, could we proceed with our conditional use permit? Once they finalized their plan, they shared that with us. We worked with them and we determined that it was in substantial compliance with that development agreement. And therefore we are here tonight presenting this site plan to you based on the premise that this plan before you is consistent with that development agreement. So here is the proposed site plan that's before you. I'll mention to you that the site consists, or the applicant's asking for a conditional use permit approval to develop 235 multifamily units on the subject property. In total, there's 14 buildings on the site. Majority of them are 2-story along the perimeter, and then the 1 3-story building is this large building near the intersection of McMillan and Vincenzo Way. That was, again, as I mentioned to you, this layout is similar to what is currently in the recorded development agreement. Product or the number of unit mix for the development will consist of 26 studios, 131 bedrooms, single bedrooms, 52 2-bedroom units, and 26 3-bedroom units. Access to this proposed development, you can see here, 1 access is proposed on the west boundary, and then 2 access points are along East Vincenzo Way. I'd also mentioned to the commission that all of the roadways adjacent to this property are currently constructed, and there is currently no local street access to this property. So the 2 roads on the west and east boundary are currently designated collector streets. And as you know, McMillan Road is an arterial roadway. Typically, our codes do require access to be taken from the lesser classified roadway. In this particular case, those are the 2 collector roadways on either side of the development. The other interesting note for the commission on this particular project is all of the street frontage improvements are done for this project as well. So there's street buffers on the west side, the east side, and also the McMillan Road side. That will be incorporated into part of this development. One of the criteria for approving open space for multifamily developments is requiring the commission to allow open space to be adjacent to arterial and collector roadways. So that's part of your purview tonight, whether or not you feel that's appropriate based on the open space that they're showing this evening. I'd mentioned to you that in the staff report, staff was recommending that you do that. But again, that's something under your purview tonight as I continue through my presentation. All of the access is being proposed by internal drive aisles. That's typical with multifamily. This is one parcel. So all of these interconnected driveways are providing access to all those residential units. The fire department has commented on that, and the applicant is meeting those requirements as well. I'd also mention to you in the staff report, you can see the two graphics on the right here. Staff did recommend some revisions to the site plan that you're seeing this evening. One is adding an additional, although we try to limit access, there's also an opportunity to get better access or have consolidated accesses with properties. So the adjacent property north of this particular property is zoned commercial. And this piece is R15. And we have an elementary school just to the northwest of this development. And in our discussions with the applicant during the pre-application meetings, not only for the CUP, but also for the DA modification that they went through, we wanted to make sure that this intersection aligned to help facilitate parents taking kids to school or kids getting to school. In addition to that, we feel typically we want the mixed-use developments, we want uses to be integrated. And because this is an opportunity to do that, this is one way to provide cross-access for the commercial development and provide the pedestrian connectivity that the mixed-use policies call for in the plan. So that's one of the specific changes we've requested, that they work with the property owner to the north to make that happen. The second has to do with the parking central to the development here. As you may hear tonight, typically when you have a road that goes through a development, there's a potential for cut-through traffic. And when you have back out parking and you create conflicts that may not necessarily work. And so staff has made some recommendations in the staff report to eliminate that parking, or at least try to add some kind of traffic calming or design it differently in order for that to function a little bit better for the site. I haven't confirmed with the applicant which option they've want to go with, but I can tell you we've asked for some bulb outs here at the two intersections of these driveways, or actually rotate these buildings 90 so that the driveways actually, these two center buildings front across from the adjacent buildings to minimize those back out parking onto that drive wall. As I'm sure the applicant is going to address that with you in their presentation this evening. The other part of the change that we requested was, as you can see here, the parking area for the larger 3-story structure. There's 2 curb cuts to that driveway. Although code doesn't address that, we feel as best planning practices, it's better to align driveways. So we're hoping they'll eliminate one of those exit points and shift that over and have it align like you would on a public street, having those accesses aligned to minimize conflicts on the site. The applicant, here's the open space exhibit that the applicant proposed. Again, a lot of our discussion with the applicant on this particular property had to do with density and open space. We were very adamant with them that the comprehensive plan anticipates densities between 6 and 15 dwelling units to the acre. The applicant was sensitive to that, knowing that the neighbors may not be supportive of higher density on this particular project. So they made a conscious effort not only to minimize the height of the units to 2-story along the perimeter, but also keep that density under that 15 units to the acre. So the project before you tonight is roughly 14 dwelling units to the acre, which I think if it bodes well, it's consistent with that mixed use community designation. As part of that, they wanted to make sure to address some of the neighborhood concerns regarding open space and amenities. A lot of times when these developments go in adjacent to single family homes, neighbors are always concerned about residents using their open space or their amenities as part of their subdivision. This applicant, the plan that's shown before you shows approximately 6 acres of open space, which is tremendous amount of open space for a multifamily development, exceeds code requirements. You can see here on the amenity table that I've attached before you, they have amenities in excess of code requirements as well. There's 13 amenities proposed for this development. Again, I won't take all of the applicants' thunder this evening. I'll let them try to sell you a little bit more on their project, but at least I want to highlight some of the distinction of this project for you and what we're getting more than what code requires. The other issue that comes up quite a bit with multifamily developments is the parking. And if you had a chance to look at the staff report, the applicant's actually providing more parking than is required by code. 59 extra spaces to be exact. And lastly, I wanted to just get to the elevations. Again, the applicant has submitted a concurrent design review application. Typically, you guys are not the body to act on design review. Staff, if you see here in the lower corner here, staff is technically approved, the directors approved the design review application with a couple tweaks or modifications, if you will. I know the applicant can continue to work with staff through that as part of their CZC submittal if they're successful in getting through the hearing with an approval. But it's really nothing part of your purview this evening. I think we can work those things out. Again, if you guys concur and they get an approval from the city to move forward. Primarily, staff wants to make sure that it blends in with the surrounding neighborhood and there's a mix of colors and materials on buildings. That's really the intent behind the design manual. And that's why we brought these 3 changes to the applicant's attention. Again, the design manual also allows a designer to go through what we call a design standards exception if they want to do something equal to or better than code. And they have that ability to do that with staff. If the commission had a chance, I'll go ahead and close on my comments and just let you know if you've had a chance to look at the public record, and judging by the audience in the room this evening, you can see that we have received quite a bit of testimony, written testimony on this project. And looking at that testimony, there seems to be some common themes. One has to do with increased traffic on McMillan, which I know this body is very aware of with all the development occurring in the area. 2 is neighbors' perception of increased crime and lowering property values with the proposed development. As we've discussed numerous occasions, school capacities are a concern. And then also the neighbors had concerns with the aesthetics of the apartments not blending in with the adjacent neighborhood. And as I just mentioned to you, we're trying to get that to fit a little bit better with our design review process. With that, I'll just close and say that staff is recommending approval with the conditions in the staff report. I've had a chance to talk with the applicant before before tonight's hearing, and they are in agreement with staff's recommended conditions as well. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation and stand for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill. Appreciate that. Would the applicant like to come forward at this time? Good evening, sir. Please state your name and address for the record, and the floor is yours.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mr. Chair. Dustin Holt, Alpha Development Group, 166 East, 14,000 South, Draper, Utah. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you very much for your time this evening. Alpha Development is a joint venture with Wadsworth Development Group and Ball Ventures. With me tonight is another principal and partner at Alpha Development, Bryce Baker, as well as Tari Malafua of Ball Ventures, our outside counsel, Jeff Wardle, Kelly Morgan of Method Studios, the architect for the project, and Brad Watson from our office. I want to publicly thank Mr. Dodson, who isn't here, but Mr. Parsons as well as Mr. Neri. We've spent a great deal of time with your staff the last year and a half, and appreciate the approach that they take. And I believe that they're looking out for the city's best interest. Alpha, let's see, I'm kind of technologically inept, so. Am I driving the mouse? Oh, that's why. Wasn't moving. So slide 2. Alpha Development and its partners have been involved in multiple product types, everything from industrial, hospitality, retail, multifamily, office, and we've been involved. Bill, you can click click through. We've been involved and/or our partners have been involved in projects here in Meridian City itself and/or in the greater Treasure Valley. And we appreciate the opportunity to yet again be involved in a project here. Click through a couple slides there. So before we get to the really pretty pictures and all the fun stuff, and I think Bill did a wonderful job at recounting some of the history, but going back to show where we've been, to show how we ended up where we are today, I think does merit a little bit of time. So this is a land use history starting in 2006, specific to this property, to where we are today. Bill, if you want to go to the next one for us. So in 2006, this property was originally annexed in conjunction with a 312 acre annexation. At that time, a development agreement was signed and various portions of the 312 acres were given various zoning designations. Then in 2008, the comprehensive plan for the city was actually updated to reflect more of those zoning designations and some of those uses. The 16 acre parcel that we're here to discuss tonight at that point in time, as Bill mentioned, was given a mixed use community comp plan designation between single family to the west and commercial to the right. So at that time, planners and staff noted that a more intense density would be necessary, or intensity would be to the east, and a less intense use would be located to the west. Then in 2010, the development agreement was actually modified. 93 of those previous 312 acres were included in an overall concept plan that Bill referenced. Again, those zoning designations as well as those comp plan designations were reaffirmed in that development agreement amendment. And this overall concept plan for 93 acres was created. At that point in time, the previous developer had actually pursued or had hopes of pursuing a large hospital facility that ultimately picked a different location. And so the 93 acres has commercial, the hospital facility, MOB, multifamily, senior, assisted, and a variety of uses. But again, this 16 acre piece was zoned R15 and received the mixed community designation. I want to make one note to Bill's comment about the other developer who we bought from. His application, I hope you'll recall, was actually north of this. It was not part of this 16 acres where he was previously presenting changing the commercial to single family homes. And we still have contact with the property owner to the north and are confident as we get to some of the latter part that we can work out that joint access onto gondola. I forgot my water. So then in 2019, after the hospital and that medical facility ultimately moved somewhere else, you can see some of the language at the top of this page. Various items, there was again an amendment to the development agreement. It actually consolidated 4 development agreements into 1 development agreement. And several items were removed and a couple of key provisions were actually incorporated into that development. So a couple of the things that were removed were the points related to healthcare, the hotel, the MOB. Those items were struck, and what was put in its place was a reaffirmation of those zones, and then language that at the time that a development would come forth, that development would have to adhere to the then zoning and the comp plan for that property. And that's really what brings us to where we are today. But more than 10 years ago, this process started of more intensity on the corner, less intensity to the west of us, and that's what we've been working through. We acquired this property a little more than a year ago, got involved in this property about 18 months ago. Initially, we did not love the concept plan. So we came and met with staff. We explained what our intent or vision was. We met with some of the neighbors. We put a concept plan together. That concept plan, while I haven't put it in here, I'm happy to share it with you or show it to you, but it consisted of 32 structures. Many of those were 4- and 5-plex townhome structures. They were 3-story urban townhome structures. And then we did have 3 larger buildings. When we came or went before the city council and showed them this 32 structure plan, they ultimately said they did not believe that it was complied or was close enough to the original concept plan. So as Bill mentioned, they denied that application in February of this year. And since then, we've met with Bill and Mr. Neri and Joe, and we've talked through the concept plan, which is on your left, from the 2009 development agreement that was then included in 2019. And a couple of the key points that staff told us to focus on: 13 multiplex buildings, a clubhouse that's more centric to the building, and then a larger building out on McMillan. What we did is go through I'm going to call it a constructability or a real world assessment of that. We met with fire. As you can see, many of the drive aisles onto those adjacent streets, San Vito and Vicenza, they don't line up with the subdivisions or the commercial that exists. So we looked at real world constructability of those. We aligned those intersections. As Bill mentioned, we met with fire. We looked at hammerheads, turnarounds, radius, circulation, and what we could do to that previous concept plan to make it buildable. After we worked through that, and when I say that, I'm talking just on the horizontal plane, and got confirmation that this concept plan would comply with the concept plan from the previous development agreements, we then set out onto the vertical nature and the fun stuff, the buildings, and trying to answer neighbors' concerns. So we have had at least 4 meetings with the neighbors. I know that we've not answered all of their concerns. I do think that we have answered some of their concerns. And I think that some of those concerns that we have been able to address, I think, are pretty significant concerns. And some of them, Bill's, as he mentioned, already stole our thunder and shared those with you. But I think it's worth just going through them. So if you'll go down to the next, you can actually skip the next slide. It just shows 3 or 4 of those meetings that we had in the timelines. So this stack flat building is the southernmost building. It's the T-shaped building. Originally, when we presented this to the neighborhood, this was a 4-story structure. And in conversations with them, they expressed concerns about that. So we have removed an entire floor from this building, and we've removed it to a 3-story structure. Additionally, Bill, as you go down, our mansion home, our multiplex building. Again, we had 3-story urban townhomes that we looked at. We heard that the urban fill of those townhomes wasn't Meridian, wasn't neighborhood. And so this modern farm home design and architectural aesthetic is what we then fixated on. We lowered this to a 2-story home with steeper roof pitches to more closely replicate or mimic a single family home. Some of those 412 and 612 plus roof pitches, but dropping it to a 2-story building from a 3-story product, again, I think is something worth noting. Mr. Dodson, in his staff report, I think did a wonderful job. He enumerated how this plan complies with and or exceeds both the zoning ordinance as well as the comp plan, and the ordinances outlined in both of those. Even at 14 units to the acre, we're still providing more than double the required open space. We had neighbors that expressed grave concern because of Bridge Tower as a master plan community. Some of the pools, some of the parks, some of the trails, some of the ball courts and facilities that are in nearby adjacency. There was concern that our residents would end up on their facilities. And so we've tried to go to great extent, as Bill mentioned, in providing the qualified open space that is nearly double what's required, and additionally providing 13 of those site development amenities. So we have a dog park, a basketball court, a pool, a hot tub, a fitness facility, pickleball courts, basketball or barbecue stations, hammock garden, cabanas, clubhouse, business lounge. The fitness course around the outside is actually very intentionally planned so that a certain number of loops is a certain number of miles. the hard court or hardscape picnic areas, the bike storage, the bike repair, and then the EV charging station. So we think we've gone to a great extent to provide our residents with the amenities. So once they're home, they can stay there, they can recreate, and they can enjoy their time with their friends and families. As mentioned, we are providing 59 extra parking stalls. That's in direct response to the neighbors. There was concern that parking would overflow into the neighborhood. And so a couple of things to note are that we're providing that more than 10% in excess of what's required by code. And we're also proposing that we would continue the no parking signs or leave the no parking signs on San Vito and Vicenza both, so that no residents would park there. And then we're trying to provide, 59 extra parking stalls for the residents of our community in and of itself. As found in the staff report, the project conforms with the underlying zoning, the concept plan and the development agreement, and the land use designation. A traffic report was provided to ACHD. ACHD reviewed that traffic report and accepted that traffic report. They are going to require some mitigations, and we understand those mitigations, and we are ready to comply with those mitigations as part of this process and prior to receiving certificate of occupancy. We've mentioned, or Bill's mentioned, some of those other items from the staff report. I'll note a couple of those. The access road to the north, we continue to have a great relationship with that property owner to the north along at Gondola. And previously, he would work with us in carving a piece of his property off to be able to get that access. We're still confident we can get that access. We are looking at bulb outs and raised walkways along that main driveway, which was one of staff's alternate recommendations. And then we are comfortable with realigning the entrance and minimizing the entrance into that surface parking lot. And any of the other items that Bill mentioned, we are confident in our relationship with staff that we'll be able to finalize those through the CZC process. Time? Did I hear some? 40 seconds. Okay, perfect. I did well. We're really excited about this. We're excited about the investment into the community. I know that you will hear from residents who have concerns. We share many of the same concerns. We've spent a great deal of time understanding ITD and ACHD's road improvements along Chinden, the highway extension of 16, the intersections along McMillan. We've understood those improvements that will be taking place over the next 3 and 4 years. And as you think about this project, I just want you to think about, everyone believes or anticipates that this is happening tomorrow and that it's all going to get built at once. Assuming the approval occurs, we've got the better part of 6 months to 12 months to work through final construction drawings and building permits. And then our general contractor is telling us this is a 26 to 30 month construction build out. During that 26 to 30 months, units would come on in various phases, but we're talking about something in excess of 3 years when many of the school district improvements as well as the traffic improvements will be made. So we very much appreciate your time, appreciate your attention on this matter, and respectfully request your approval of our CUP this evening. I'm here for any questions. Let me know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dustin. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff or the applicant? Okay, seeing none.
And will we have a chance to respond to?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yep, you're very welcome. Madam Clerk? We probably
Online.
don't have anybody signed in to testify, do we?
Let me check. Online, we had a Mr. Bill Clark signed up to testify, and I believe he's in chambers.
Good evening, sir. If you can give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Bill Clark. I live at 3670 West Balducci. We live directly across the street from the proposed development, immediately to the south side of McMillan. I've been to most of the video discussions with the developer. I've also read a great number of the documents submitted by the agencies. And I wrote in my written comments that my wife and I are not opposed to growth. However, we feel that the growth that must occur must benefit the entire community. And the positive aspects have to outweigh the negative aspects. And it's our belief that that is not the case with this current project. I'm a retired chief operating officer, and part of my job was to make sure when people came to sell me stuff that the statistics matched the benefits for the potential outlay. And so as a result of that, we talked a lot about traffic on Monday, and on Tuesday, I went out, took a lawn chair and a pad and a pencil, and I just did a traffic count at the intersection of McMillan and San Vito. I did it from 3 to 410 on Monday, and from 250 to 410 on Tuesday. So I'd have 2 data points. So you'd think I wasn't biasing my data. According to the engineers hired by the consultants or by the developers, the peak travel hours are actually 4 to 6 p.m. So my sample is prior to that. Yes, here's my data. Now you'll see on this outside column over here, the averages of those 2 days. And there were an average of 1,049 vehicles traveled that intersection during that period. Out of that, 467 of them traveled east, 550 of them were traveling west, and there is a higher percentage going west because you guys have already approved a number of developments further down towards Black Cat. And so that development is going to continue to expand, and there will be more and more traffic going in that direction. According to an ACHD document dated August 5th, they had peak traffic count on McMillan at 335 vehicles. That's opposed to the 1,049 that I counted. Vincenzo Way, there was no data, and I wasn't sitting down there, so I can't provide anything there. And on San Vito Way, they had 59 vehicles as a peak traffic count, and my count was 301, with 224 of those going north and 77 of them going south. 1,049 vehicles is 14 vehicles per minute, and that averages out to a vehicle every 4.28 seconds. That makes it very difficult for pedestrians to cross that street, and there were a lot of parents with school children trying to cross that street to get back. I'll be quick, please. Cars turning left onto San Vito got piled up in the turn lane, and one vehicle ran through the stoplights at the bus, but the bus driver was very astute, and I understand that can happen any place. But there are several numbers that don't match up in the traffic studies, and I went out and got the engineering study that the developers used to quote you guys the traffic numbers that would occur as a result of this development. They said there would be 1,788 daily trips generated by this development. I'll accept that. I don't know where that comes from, but they said there would be 123 cars at the peak morning time, which was 7 to 9, and that there would be 148 at the peak evening hours. I went out and acquired the engineering document they used as a reference, and what they seem to have quoted was light industrial entrance and exit numbers. If you look at mid-rise multifamily housing, which I believe this is more in line with, those numbers are understated by about 238%. They're actually 293 versus 123 and 300 versus 148. So my point is not to bury you in statistics. You can show the next slide if you would. The fact of the matter is, wherever these cars exit, I show you this diagram not to try to explain it to you, just to show you what a mess this intersection is, because it's chaos at that time of day.
And sir, we'll need to wrap it up for real quick.
I'll do it real quick.
No, thank you.
Nevertheless, my summary. I don't believe you can evaluate this project in isolation from the surroundings in the existing community. That's one. Two, it will adversely impact the existing neighborhoods, traffic flows, quality of life, public services, public schools. And these are all for people who've already invested in this community. And I think that's important. It's been presented on a couple different fronts as affordable housing, and to the residents as high-end developments, so there would be a higher class of people moving in there. I would ask that if the Planning Commission feels that more housing needs to be developed in that area, that it get rezoned to a low-density residential classification. There's also commercial applications and some other things. But I guess my only other comment was, this is a 16.6 acre parcel with 6.7 acres of open space, which means you're putting 235 units in 9.8 acres, which appears to me to be like R23. And I don't think vertical density is any less important than horizontal density. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk,
John Wyckoff.
please do not do that. Thank you. Please keep it orderly.
Is there a John Wyckoff?
Good evening, sir. Please give us your name and address for the record. The floor is yours.
5099 North Pole Center, Meridian. I think based on what they were presenting here, I want to move into that facility. As man, it's got everything that anybody would ever want to, but it's really doing a lot for me as a resident of my area. I got to speak on a number of things. Going down McMillan, there have been a number of occasions that even I, growing up in Orange County, LA, have almost faced it and hit T-boned in the back trying to pull into San Vito from McMillan. Crossing over, going from one side of San Vito to the other side of San Vito. I'm waiting for that day during a snowfall that somebody is just going to get, that you're going to have a major accident. Over at Gondola Black Cat, all the crowds of kids trying to come across to go to the school over there, I'm blanking on it. There's going to be some problems just with the density of the, what's being presented here too. You have some problems in that. Bigger concern that I have is just the HOA. Since I've moved in there, things that have happened with the HOA, from the watering never getting done to pool use. It's already become overcrowded within that area. And now the HOA owner, or the owner developer who is now controlling the HOA, one person having control of just one lot that he is not selling off, is affecting us as the residents of the HOA. Ridge Tower West is controlling everything about our property. He has already said, Mr. Developer here, that he has a good working relationship with him because he also owns the property on the north side of Walmart. To be able to, at any time, really be able to control the sale of any portion of our property to the property developer above on the north side of Walmart. So I guess to make it short, it's really becoming irritating. When I purchased the property, I was under the impression that it was going to be a good development. Now we're getting squeezed on everything. Property from the HOA could potentially be sold to any one of the areas because he still gets to dictate what the HOA can and can't do. So, and since I am owning a property that is paying my property taxes to Meridian, that in 2016 was nominated as is the best place city in the United States, it's becoming a big concern for me because I bought in this area because of that. So that's really what I want to leave it to. I mean, give time to somebody else to speak. But that's all.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Madam Clerk?
Debbie Wyckoff. Okay. Patricia Fritzl or Fritschel.
Good evening, ma'am. Your name and address for the record? Can you, yep.
Patricia Fritchley, 5524 North Botticelli Avenue, Meridian, Ridge Tower West. I oppose the development, not just because of the density, but as a whole, with McMillan not being expanded on streetwise, you are developing James Ranch, Rapid Creek, Oak Creek, Prescott, all of which is just a few of the current developments that's going on around our neighborhood that are going to add hundreds of homes, which is going to increase even more the traffic that's already backlogged on Black Cat, McMillan, 10 Mile. And I just don't see adding something like this to our neighborhood beneficial.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Janice Borchard.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and address for the record.
Janice Borchard, 5466 North Botticelli, Meridian. Number one, I wanted to say I've been pretty much with all the meetings, and Dustin and Brad have been really good about my big concern was I know we're going to have apartments there. So I want them to be the most aesthetically pleasing to our community. And I think they have done a really good job with the modern farmhouse, because I went around all over town and took pictures of what I thought would be acceptable in our community, because we do have a nice, Bridge Tower West is a nice, really nice, subdivision. And I didn't want that urban look. So kudos to them for working, with us on doing that. Really happy. Dustin mentioned one concern that my husband and I have is he said that the no parking signs are going to stay on San Vito. And I just would really like reassurance that that's going to happen because I can see overflow parking, like an RV or whatever for this community, because they don't have that capability of perhaps, parking a boat or whatever in their community, having it be on San Vito. And right now that is our, grand entrance. And so that's number one. And number two is what other folks have brought up is there seems to be a real lack of infrastructure going in this town before these developments get started. I drive McMillan, a lot, and there are no turnouts for people. So traffic is stopped all up and down, like down to Cloverdale. We need to really improve some of the traffic flow that we have in this community. I know there's a roundabout going in, but again, it's kind of like, it's too late, by the time that goes in a few years. So with that being said, that's a concern. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And thank you for taking the time to have constructive input back to the builder. Appreciate that.
Ross Anderson.
Good evening, sir. Name and address for the record. Good.
Ross Anderson, 4510 West Twisted Creek Drive. So I think that the optics that the developer are painting are perhaps not the best, right? It's for their benefit. There's a monetary value to that. All of those things that people are in business for to make money. And I appreciate and respect that. However, as a citizen, resident, and living in Bridge Tower West, we paid a premium for the home in a general area to have an upper middle class neighborhood. In addition to that, we looked at this area specifically for the schools, right? We could have moved anywhere that we wanted to. And so we drew circles around areas and said, look, Owyhee is right here and there's other schools around there as well, but they're already over capacity, right? So I'd just like to cite a couple of things from some of the previous rulings, a letter from West Ada, and then just some firsthand knowledge of what I've witnessed. And hopefully that'll give you guys a little bit different perspective here. So in January 22nd of 2020, there was a townhouse that was planned to be constructed, and it was denied by the Meridian City Council. That was at McMillan and 10 Mile. And that was on a 5-acre parcel of land. At the time, the council president, Treg Burnt, said, I like what I see in the development sometimes. It's just not the right time. Sometimes it's just not the right place. In addition to that, a councilwoman, Liz Strader, said that there are macro level issues, including a traffic nightmare on McMillan and school overcrowding that would be intensified by a higher density housing development like Goddard Creek. I don't think this neighborhood, especially this area on McMillan, can support any density beyond the R4, she said. Ultimately, at that time, the council members unanimously voted 5-0 to deny that application. So the question I have is, 2 years ago, if a 5-acre parcel and some townhomes was denied based on traffic, What's the delta and the difference between now when you're adding 234 units 2 years later with an already over congested area with more area that's been built up? We don't think that that's going to go down. It certainly is increased as well. The West Ada School District with Marcy Horner, the Planning and Development Administrator, on August 26th sent the note over to everybody here. And the cliff notes of this basically says that the capacity is already full. The projection for students with the approved development in Pleasant View Elementary, which is around the corner from our home, will have an enrollment capacity of 650, but the projected stats are going to be 787. That's over capacity. Star Middle School, the cap is 1,000, but it's going to be projected at 1,033. That's just with this development, not even counting the others on Black Hat and, and around. And, I think the summary of all of this, if I may just have another moment, as a parent, safety is really paramount to everybody, right? Our children are our most precious resource. And as we look at safety, traffic congestions, gondola is already a madhouse, and you have a big problem with the way that the road is, where it's going east to west. So people that are dropping off children in the morning are going to be blinded by the sunrise. People that are dropping off or picking up kids in the evening are going to be blinded by the sunset. And it would be a shame if the influx of cars causes an injury to a child because of the factors that I'm stating. In addition to that, we're talking about the education of our children, and schools that are already over capacity. And you're talking about building other portables and bringing all these other, units onto the school campus. Well, those are all subsidized through us, right, as taxpayers. In addition to that, teacher salaries, the buildings, everything else. But the real people that suffer as a result of overcrowding in schools, they're not the taxpayers. They're our most precious resource. They're our children. And we're robbing them from a potential future by inundating more and more people to the particular area. And I just think that with all the land in Meridian and surrounding areas, that there's other ample sites for this with infrastructure that supports it, both schools, roads, and other. And I think that we should highly consider altering course on this. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Michelle Anderson. Okay, thank you. Beverly Harkle.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and address for the record, please. Either one will work.
Hi, Beverly Hartle, 4881 North Bolsena. I am here for we the people of Bridge Tower West subdivision. I too have a history here in Meridian. I was born and raised in Southern California, and I have lived in Meridian, Idaho for the last 28 years. And virtually I've lived in the 4 square miles for that 28 years, from Ustick to Cherry Lane, Linder, up 10 miles. So I have seen the significant changes in Meridian. It was about under 10,000 people when I moved here. And now I just looked up the statistics of Meridian population, and we're at 126,000. Yes, we've expanded Eagle. It was a 2-lane road when I moved here. 10 Mile was, I believe, just a 2-lane up to just a few years ago. And I still own property just a mile to the west in Kelly Creek. And I built our home 4 years ago in 2018. Little did I know that I would be moving to an area that we would be having apartments being built right near my property. And I am completely against that. And we take such pride in ownership and value in our property, and it shows. And I don't agree with the connecting aspect to having apartments access San Vito or gondola. Like, what is the purpose to access that if you have an access into that road right behind Walmart? There's no reason there should be an access to that. So additionally, the traffic is a major concern because I wait lengthy periods of time trying to get out of my neighborhood. In addition to that, we've had that mentioned before, the neighborhoods that have already been approved over on Black Cat. And in addition, I wonder if we have taken into consideration the Interstate 16 that's going to have the connected roadway for everybody traveling down McMillan to access that Interstate 16. That is just 2 miles away from our housing development. Once that occurs, I mean, that's in a planning stage right now. That's happening right now. It's in construction. And 2 miles from us, everybody's going to be coming onto McMillan. That was never before, because they're going to be accessing that interstate that goes all the way to I-15. So that is a major concern. And the irrigation canals, just one more thing, is there's no plan to expand McMillan for another 10 years because of the irrigation pipes that go all the way east and west along McMillan. So what type of infrastructure are we going to do already before adding these apartment complexes to right behind our neighborhood? So that is a major concern of safety, infrastructure, and the amount of traffic. And I'm a former Mrs. Idaho. I'm a former Mrs. Meridian. I'm a former Mrs. Ada County. And I take pride and ownership in my property, in my city, in my state. And Utah, I know the roads, the infrastructure is a big difference compared to Idaho and compared to where we live right now. And it's not okay. It's not where we want to be in our area of Idaho. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sean Freeman.
Good evening, sir. Name and address for the record,
John
please.
Freeman, 177 West Peach Springs. I'd ask the commission to please not approve this application, do not approve it. As stated before, they can't support the infrastructure. In the staff report, you do note in your staff report that McMillan is already well documented to be impacted. However, you also note in your staff report that you believe that this project is harmonious with what should happen. I disagree. I do not think this application should go forward. Also, I'd also note that you have the chance now. In 2008, they made this R15. You guys should look at whatever else is R15, and R15 and approved should never come out of your mouths. It should never be approved anything that's R15. Simply as that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ann Frankel. Ann Frankel. Okay, we'll go on to Jim Mangum. Or Mangrum. Okay, Jeff Wertz. Gabriel Astoria. Yes, please.
Good evening, sir. Need your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Gabriel Storga. I'm at 4543 West Twister Creek. And I'm standing before the council this morning to request that the motion be denied. We've already addressed the traffic concerns and the lack of infrastructure to support this development. So I won't get into that, but also just want to note on record that there's already 2 high-density housing units within less than 1.5 miles in proximity to the proposed location. Having grown up in Southern California in the San Fernando Valley in particular, I saw the rise and increase in apartment dwellings. And the issue with that is that it draws a transient population where we have residents that are part of the community but don't have stake in the community. They're able to break leases or just to go ahead and relocate to different areas where the rest of us have chose to homestead here in Idaho. So I'm going to just ask the commission to consider rezoning the project or to rezone it for low density housing or commercial use. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, just to
Absolutely.
elaborate on some of the comments I've been hearing tonight, not trying to interrupt the public testimony, but just want to make it clear with the residents that the city doesn't rezone property or the commission doesn't rezone property without having a rezone application in front of you. So essentially the way it works is the rezone application happens if someone comes and proposes to rezone a property. So the commission just can't arbitrarily rezone something to a low density designation. The property's zoning, that's an entitlement that runs with the land. The only way the zoning could change is if the applicant proposes to change the zoning. So I just want to make that clear on the record that that's not even part of the discussion tonight.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Bob Thomas.
Evening, sir. Name and address for the record, and floor is yours.
Bob Thomas, 4455 West Twisted Creek. Thank you for taking the public testimony. That's important. Just my qualification, I am a police and fire chaplain. I have been for the last 7 years. I'm from North Idaho. I've actually spent about 10,000 hours in a patrol car responding to fire or police emergencies. One of the statistics that most people don't know is that when you get into high density housing, such as apartments, again, in North Idaho, when we moved there 24 years ago, I think we had about 8,800 people in our town, which is now somewhere in the neighborhood of like 50,000, and Kootenai County is coming up on 400,000. But the population explosion destroyed it. And what happened was developers came in and they said, how can we stack more people into the same small area? And when they started to do that, what it did was they started building apartments and high density housing. Well, calls for service in high density housing are anywhere from 6 to 10 times what they are in a single family residence area. When I say that, I mean police coming to crime scenes, coming to drug overdoses, coming to lots of domestic abuse, and fire coming from medical emergencies, et cetera. When you put too many people in too small of a cage, let's call it, then you have more problems. School resource officers, some of my best friends are school resource officers. And when you talk to them about, problems that they have, many of them, most of them are coming from, and I hate to say it, but lower income or higher density. It just kind of works that way. When you start shoving so many people into a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom apartment, it's just, those are the statistics. As it stands right now, school, this Pleasant View Elementary, it's at capacity. What do you think is going to happen when, because we now bring in an apartment complex with another 200 and some odd people in it, some of the people who moved to Bridge Tower are now being told, and it was in the comments, I think from Marcy, that one of the solutions is to bus people, kids, to other schools. So people move into a neighborhood that has been built up by the developer to become a nicer and nicer community. It has, values have gone up and up and up. People have paid over $1 million for homes in that area. And now they're told, hey, I know you shopped. I know that you worked. I know that you earned. I know that you sacrificed to get where you're at. And your kids, well, I'm sorry. I know they were supposed to go to this school. We're going to bus them down the road. That is just going to create legal problems. It's going to create more animosity. I have seen firsthand from North Idaho, one of the reasons we moved was the population explosion destroyed the community. And we don't want to be a part of that. The last thing I wanted to just say is, obviously the subdivision that we are in right now was very well planned. This is truly hometown USA. Kids playing in the street, neighbors talking with each other. Our 4th of July was the largest I've ever seen. We're going to take away from that for one reason. The only true benefactors in this are not the community, but an out-of-state developer who has no stake in Meridian, Idaho. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, sir.
Matt Garrison.
Evening, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, Matt Garrison, 3898 West Lucina Drive, Meridian. I live on the south side of McMillan. I've come from an experience I've lived in my adult life in lots of areas that have been extremely overdeveloped. LA, Orange County, Tampa, Houston, Dallas, Portland in the last 30 years. And I've seen developers come in and just flood the areas with massive amounts of overdevelopment where 10 and 15-minute commutes turn into 45-minute commutes or an hour. And it really, really erodes the quality of life in so many ways. Nobody wants to spend that much time in a car or waiting for traffic lights. If you sit out there at San Vito right now and McMillan, it really at any given time of day, it's already, as the first guy showed us in his numbers, it's very crowded any time of day. Now you're going to add 400 cars, school buses, delivery trucks, guests and visitors coming in and out of the apartment complex, coming in and out on a 2-lane road. I foresee, what are you going to add another traffic light at San Vito and McMillan? We've already got congestion east and west going from Black Cat all the way to Eagle, more stoplights along. McMillan aren't going to make it any better. So I would encourage the city of Meridian altogether not to give in to overdevelopment. It just ruins the quality of life. Everybody came here for quality of life. I would say put the high density housing on roads that are already developed, like 10 Mile and Ustick, closer to I-84. Don't stick them into 2-lane roads, interdispersed between the single family housing. It's just going to be a mess. Thanks.
Thanks, sir.
William Clark. Okay, and a Jody Clark. Paul Elam. Chris Williams.
Oh, he's coming.
Oh, excuse me.
Chris, yep, we'll get to you here in just a second.
Hi, I'm Paul Elam. My address is 5127 north of CC Avenue in Meridian. I live also in Bridge Tower West, like many other people here. Dear Planning and Zoning Commission, like so many families, we moved here recently seeking a better environment for our families, a safer environment, one where we could let our children play outside without having to worry about them. When we first moved here, we lived near Linder and Ustick, which is beautiful with 2 lanes in each direction, plus a turning lane in the middle. The road from between Ustick near Sawtooth Middle School north to Chinden was well thought out and looks beautiful and very safe for children. Then 3 months ago, we finally decided to move to our permanent home. We chose Bridge Tower West as the location of our new home. We did this because we wanted a peaceful and quiet neighborhood and a lovely community. Our family was super excited because we immediately connected with great neighbors and loved the surrounding area. Then a month ago, shock hit us when we learned that Alpha Development Group is seeking approval to build a giant apartment complex here between Bridge Tower West and Walmart. We feel betrayed by the city and the original developer, Mike McCullum. Many people here did not know that Mike was going to sell the land, which was originally supposed to be a senior living area, to another company only just a little over a year ago. These are our emotions, and though they feel real, I'm sure the commission, mayor, and city council only care about facts. So let's discuss facts. This is a complete wrong location for so many reasons for apartments based on many facts. One gentleman just spoke a minute ago and talked about the perfect location would be where there's much more exit points. I-84 down there has, or near I-84 and 10 Mile, has 2 gigantic complexes going in on each side of I-84 on 10 Mile. Perfect design, perfect planning, and the way it should be to begin with. The road and the infrastructure near where they want to build this apartment complex is horrible. And I'm sick and tired of looking at these pictures from a bird's eye view when the real story is get in a car and go down there. Sit at the lights, sit behind 20 or 30 cars on the way to drop your kid at Oahe High School on McMillan. And you can see in both directions on Black Cat, McDermott, all the way down, every single cross street has a subdivision slated to go in, either marked out with, markers, or it's already under development or partially built. I would ask Bill here to tell us exactly how many homes are either under construction or permitted to go in from the 10-mile area all the way down to Wahi High School. Can you tell us how many that is, Bill? That's right. And that should be part of planning, right? Part of planning should be to anticipate what the area is and what it will be and how that will impact all the people around there. It's sad to me that the commission doesn't know. They really don't have the facts. How can you make a decision when you don't have the actual facts on how bad this area is? I would encourage you all in the next few days to go drive the area in the morning, in the peak times, go down by these areas and see how bad it is. Furthermore, I talked to somebody at ACHD for over an hour today, and there's some things you should know. One, the requirements they put on Alpha are the only requirements they can put on Alpha. They are strictly a body that only tells you what that condition may be. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep going. Tough luck. But this commission should look at that information. It's slated by ACHD to not widen that road, McMillan, until 2031 to 2035. So we're talking 8 to 12 years, maybe even more, before we have any easing up of the traffic. This is serious for people that live that area. Another thing Alpha isn't really talking about is that number of cars. I was on the last call that they did in the community. It was 400 to 500 cars. They said 400 plus. It'll easily be 500. Now, when they try to, all those apartment dwellers try to shortcut off a Black Cat and cut through Gondola in front of Pleasant View Elementary, it's going to create a nightmare for all those parents that are walking their kids to school. In fact, I went there and passed out flyers, and the school hadn't told any of the parents about what's possibly coming. They should. It's negligent to not tell those parents. That school is already at capacity. They've ordered portables for next year, and it's going to be based on Marcy's information. They'll probably be 120 or 30% above their number. I'm sorry, 120% of capacity by the end of this school year. That doesn't even include all the other complexes that are going in down McMillan under construction right now. This is going to be a safety issue. And the charter for the city is safety. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep going.
Sir,
you might have to carry me out.
The
schools are overcrowded. The safety zone is jeopardized. We should be focused on safety primarily. The police response time has already been noted in the agency comments to be outside of their goal. The fire department made no information.
Your time is up.
I understand that. The drought has also affected.
Please excuse yourself, sir. Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry. I think you should drive the area. You should know what we experience.
Thank you.
You should experience
We appreciate your testimony this evening, but your time is up. Thank you.
Chris Williams.
Evening, sir. We'll need your name and address for the record.
Chris Williams, 4476 North Girasolo, Meridian, 83646. I think we're all hearing a very common theme here, and that is we need less dense. It needs to be less density. Last time they came here, city council, you can look at the comments on the record, it needs to be less dense. I'm not understanding, listen to their, their proposed changes. Last time, I think, don't quote me, but I think it's around 243 units. They came back with less dense of 235 units. I'd hardly classify that as less dense. I had a speech prepared here, but I don't want to bore you with kind of everything you're hearing because I agree with everything. But even with the last gentleman, I myself, I'm guilty. I live in the community. I was going to Hawaii Tuesday evening for a middle school football game. Got down Black Cat, completely backed up down there. What I do, pulled off on a side street. I cut through Bridge Tower West, down Gondola, cut through the Oaks, avoided all that. And I live in the community. So unless, the developer can come through with less density, which past meetings that I've done, neighborhood meetings with them, they're not interested in because it's going to cut into profit. And I understand that. I can't see a solution to this. I can't. The only solution I can see is for them to come back with an application for less density. It's the only thing that I can see that can work. Unfortunately, they're trying to push this project, through, and I believe they're doing everything that they're supposed to, but it doesn't mean that it's right. It's not the right fit for the community. We've heard from multiple people, it needs to be in a different area. So I understand you just can't deny it because we don't like it as the community. I understand that. But you guys can recommend either a redesign for less density, or you can recommend denial for being too dense. So I would just ask that you guys please consider that in your decision this evening about the density and hearing the concerns. I have children that go to the Pleasant View Elementary School. It is. It's a nightmare crossing, right there at McMillan, and it's only going to get worse. And to wait for a solution for 8 to 12 years, I think is a little unacceptable. If they want to hold on to the property for 8 to 12 years, let the roads expand and see where it goes from there. But I would ask that you guys keep that in mind with your decision tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
That is the end of the people signed up to speak.
Okay. Looks like we have a couple people that are raising their hand online. Oh, 3 now, as I say it. Yes, you will have an opportunity for open floor, so we'll get to that. We just want to make sure anybody that's signed up and then if you're online, they're raising their hand, so we'll get there.
Amanda M.
Hello, Amanda, if you could give us your name and address for the record, please. Oh. Amanda, I still show that you're muted.
Hi there, sorry. My name is Amanda Matlock. I live on 3865 Riva Capri Street. We're connected directly to San Vito, that first loop in Bridge Tower West. I'm currently standing in my backyard. The reason that we could not sell our house for over a year was because of the noise, which I have not heard anybody mention the noise, traffic on McMillan. It's extremely increased. I would love it if they did more statistics on that because of the growth in Meridian and how many houses have sold. Recently everybody's moving here. So an ever changing statistic. It's 45 miles per hour behind my house. There are 3 bus stops right here on the corner of San Vito and McMillan, which my children take the bus to school. It's always very chaotic. Our main concern is they haven't built any berms. A roundabout like the Oaks right down the street would be super great. That way people would slow down, decrease the traffic flow. Like they said, there's no plans to expand the road, which is why we bought our house. We were trying to sell because of the ever-changing noise in our backyard. There's no way for us to decrease it, and it is decreasing the value of our current home, as you can probably hear behind me. This is a lower part of the day, but there's still quite a bit of traffic. So maybe some new statistics, a roundabout would be a great proposed plan. Not connecting to San Vito would be most appreciative of us as homeowners. That would be super great. So my current concerns would be to decline unless those changes or updates would happen to take place. Thank you for listening to me today. I hope you could hear me.
Yep, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Chad, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, give us your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Chad Tyler, and I live at 5570 North Botticelli Avenue in Bridge Tower West. We recently moved into the neighborhood about 5 weeks ago, actually, from a house in South Meridian. One of the reasons why we chose this neighborhood was because of the community and because of how nice the community is, and how the neighborhood was really built around that. I have big concerns about increasing the density of this neighborhood, and specifically in bringing in a more transient population. Some of the HOAs here actually even prohibit renting because they wanted to create a more close community. I think there's big concerns around density and traffic in both the roads and the schools. Even now, we have 2 kids going to Pleasant View, and they're already talking about hiring multiple new teachers and moving our kids between different classes just to accommodate how many kids there already are. And I think adding this many units and this many new people just exacerbates that to an even higher amount. So just to sum up, we paid almost 4 times what we did for our house in South Meridian for this house. And the reason is because this community is so nice. And I think that this development goes directly against that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Matt M.
Yeah, hi guys, how's it going? I just want to.
Oh, go ahead and give us your name and address for the record,
Oh,
sir.
yeah, I'm sorry. Matt Mishler, 4066 West Philomena Drive. And first off, I just want to say thank you for everybody for showing up. I'm sick right now, or else I'd definitely be there with my red shirt, no doubt about it. But I wanted to just say something really quick, and Chad, who just spoke, kind of touched on it, but I also want to read a paragraph from the principal at Pleasant View, and that'll be it for me. So it says, this is dated August 30th. Although it is not the ideal time since school has just begun, I finally received the additional teachers we need to lessen the class size in grade 1 and 2. We know bonds have been formed, comfort has been found, and routines have been established, but we feel the grade level teams are ready to help with the transition. So just as everybody's saying, the schools are already overcrowded. They are our best resource, and we all want our kids to be safe. That's all I really have. Everybody else has really spoken all the serious points, but the school is overcrowded already. So thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, that is all we have signed up online or in person.
Okay. Now, if anybody else would like to testify, please raise your hand and we will get to you all. Sir, go ahead and come up. Since you asked the question earlier, we'll start with you. How's that? Put you in the front of the line. Just need your name and address for the record, and the floor is
My name is Craig Bach. I live at 3894 West Viso in Bridgetown. I'd be wearing a red shirt, but I don't own one, so sorry. So Bill over here, he mentioned a common theme of those comments. One of the things he didn't mention, and this isn't a dig on you, but just safety. Safety should be at least a common theme or a root of everything that's in there. For me, that gentleman, previous gentleman that was online, read that paragraph from the principal. That's one of my daughters that's in that class that has to move to another teacher because there are 30 students. So that is reality that we have to deal with. I take my children to school every day, and I try to ride bikes and walk with them every day to and from school. That's peak hours, okay? That's the same time everybody's wanting to go down McMillan, and it is tough. I have to cross McMillan on San Vito to get there, okay? And we do it. We've gotten good at it, but you shouldn't have to get good at dodging cars, right? In your own neighborhood. And that's where we're at right now, okay? And that's just to get to school and back, okay? I have a concern with, they talked about, in your staff report, they recommended a cross or a connection right there at San Vito and Gondola. And then I heard somebody say, I think it was a developer, talk about cut across traffic, okay? That traffic down Gondola is increasing every day, okay? We have to go down Gondola as well to get my kids to school. There are no crosswalks on Gondola, none. There are lots of crossings, and I see lots of kids going across it, but there are no official crosswalks, okay? And if you create a connection between 10 Mile and Gondola onto Black Cat, there is going to be cut across traffic. And I just think that was I don't know why you would make that recommendation that you would add that connection. That's right at the north side of the development. Anyway, so safety is my main concern with my children. Okay, everything I hear, that's what I have. Also, I tell you, I try to ride my bike. We ride to Walmart. We do that as a means to not only reduce our budget, on fuel costs, but also just to do our part, okay, to keep cars off the street. But if this continues to get difficult and you guys make it difficult with this kind of density, we have no choice but to get in a car just to get places, okay? So Compass made their comments, and I thought they were really good, and they identified that this will increase the stress level of pedestrians and bicyclists in that area. In their comments, that's what they said. So again, if you make it difficult, people will choose not to use alternate transportation, and then, of course, sustainably, that's not the right way to go. It discourages it. Okay? One last comment, timing. The gentleman with the developer, he said, well, hey, it's going to take 3 years, right? Well, okay, I don't see any schools going up. Schools are going to take that long too, if the bonds are approved, okay? We don't have that right now. And everybody's said it. The school district comments said it. Schools are overcrowded now and projected to be overcrowded. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, go ahead and come on up. You know what I'm going to ask, so go ahead and spit it out.
Repeat it again. I haven't heard
it.
Yeah. Just kidding. Name is Nick Tomei, live at 4643 North Tier. So we're on the south side of McMillan currently. It hasn't been raised yet. It's the only reason I'm standing up. I don't want to keep redefining the same points ad nauseum. On the existing site plan, one of the things that we had asked Dustin in the last meeting was a possibility of moving the parking lot that's in the southwest corner of the development to the north east corner. The reason for that, that's where McMillan and San Vito meet. Driving cars to the area is going to force a heavier traffic flow right in that specific section. Right now, the only pool that's accessible to the community, and again, Bridge Tower West is split by McMillan, right? Part of our community is north and part of it is south. The one community pool is to the north. My 3 little ones, my twin 6-year-olds and my newly minted 10-year-old daughter, they want to use the pool during the summer. We don't allow them to cross McMillan at all without our permission. They can't go use any of the parks, basketball court over there without us driving them over because of the intensity of the traffic and people flying up and down that road. Focusing a heavy emphasis on parking in that area will exacerbate this challenge for us. So we were asking that there be consideration of potentially flipping the plan to move, if we're going to be approving anything for development of this site, of moving parking to the northeast side, which would put it closer to Walmart, where there's already heavier traffic flow around the Walmart area. So that would seem to be a make sense transition if we're going to look to find a compromise here. So that's all. I just want to add that point. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
I didn't have a red shirt either, so I bought a red pen.
Very good. Ma'am, go ahead and come on up. Evening, just need your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Li Xie Yilan. My address is 5127 North Assisi Avenue, Meridian. I'm new to Meridian, just come to 1 year. I grew up in China. My high school, I remember the front gate has wide street, 5 lane, 2 lane on each side, 1 in the middle. And also they have different gate for different direction. I was shocked at main high school going 4-way stop on each blocks. I was literally shocked, and only 1 way, not even a turning lane. So I saw the cars just turning around on where the North Oak, going their community, whatever, because the lane is just too long. It's unbearable. I myself is not the best driver. I didn't drive in China, so I learned my drive in almost 30s. So I thought, okay, what if I blink my eyes, just bump somebody? It is really stressful to drive on that road. And I can't believe this is a lot of great money here. This is a planning for a major school, and that school, the boundary is all the way to Cedar Park. So all the families rely on Macmillan rely on Arctic. Arctic is a little bit better, has a traffic light. So when the traffic light is green, there's a bunch of cars can go soon, but Meridian is one at a time. It is really, really frustrating, very, scary for me because I know I'm not a good driver. I get sleepy in the afternoon. I can't believe my high school was built in the middle of nowhere with wide open street and with all the other buildings going around it, still very wide open street. That's what I remember. That was many years ago. I'm still young at heart. Yeah. So I think reduce the car density is really necessary. And I'm in real estate. I'm in real estate last 9 years in Washington. Myself handle about 30 million transactions a year. There's many ways to do that. 1 acre, 8 to 10 townhome with parking lot, I think would be much more fit for the road, for the community. And you can make lots of money too. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Go ahead. And I apologize if I'm not getting you in order. We will get to you, I promise. That's okay. You were quick on the draw, so.
Good evening, sir. My name is Brian Chris. I live at 4902 North Botticelli in Bridge Tower West. And I do appreciate Alpha Development taking our voices into concern, but I am against this. A few things, I do understand it is zoned for R15, and it's not if, it's when, but that doesn't mean it's right now. One of the biggest concerns of mine is traffic safety and that shared entryway. My daughter works at Walmart and she's almost been ran over just walking to work. Also, San Vito Way, as you've already heard, is a raceway. People turn right off of McMillan and they try to see if they can get 0 to 60 before they make it to the pool. There's only one shared entryway for single residential homes and apartments in the area that I can find, and that's Prelude down by Linder and McMillan. And I actually measured San Vito Way from McMillan to the cutout where it would merge across from right in my backyard. And it only allows 15 to 20 vehicles before there would be backup on McMillan because one car can't turn left or right, especially with the parking lot right there where everything's going to be stacked and bottlenecking. And Mr. Holt also told us in one of the first meetings I was able to attend that he agrees with us, he understands our concerns, he hears us, but City Council at Meridian is forcing us to have this entryway here. You have 2 on the other side of Walmart, so why have this shared way when you're trying to keep us in our community that we very much near and dear to our hearts? Also, irrigation. We're on Settlers Park, and I asked him, where's the water coming from? Because we're in droughts. We've had delayed turn-ons, we've had early shutoffs, we've had multiple shutdowns for days to weeks. And then you're adding this 16 acres or how many ever, 9 acres of livable, fun land to irrigate with irrigation that already doesn't exist for when we're supposed to have it based on it coming with our home purchase. And lastly, I would like to address the elephant in the room. In December, the word of the night was density with 249 units proposed. In February, one of our councilmen sitting right here said, you didn't listen to us. You're still saying 249 units, you're just shuffling buildings around and, but we gave you a road that wasn't even a road legally. And then tonight, 235 units. That's only a reduction of 14 units from the original in December. And that's not really a reduction in my eye, but I'm just a retired Air Force guy. One thing I do find interesting, and I hope I'm not alone, is, may I continue?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, sir. Unless there's another Alpha development group that lives at www.live-alpha.com that says 225 units on their website right now, I find it very interesting that they come before you again tonight with 235 when they originally said 249. And I would like to close with, just because the internet says that Meridian, Idaho is the fastest growing city in America, doesn't mean we need to add to it. Because like Abraham Lincoln said, You can't believe everything you read on the internet. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, go right ahead and come on up.
Hi, I'm Susan Stinnett. I live at 3933 West Milano Street. I'm going to be a little bit different. I don't have kids. I moved to the neighborhood because I love the neighborhood. It is a true community. It has community values. I turn the corner coming home from work. I see the kids out playing all the time. I know I have to drive slow because those kids are out there. And that's what we're trying to, that is what community is all about. I'm one of those people that come right off McMillan, coming home from work. Yesterday, I had two kids, two teenage boys out riding a bicycle, weaving in between cars, looking out for traffic, having apartments come right out onto San Vito is asking for a major accident to happen and a tragedy. So I don't know if there are plans, and you already see it with the kids trying to come over to go to the pool. So you're just making this worse. And we need to consider something else. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Eric Betcher. I live at 4037 W Anatole Street, Meridian, Bridge Tower West. I have over 30 years of emergency management, security consultant, and Department of Defense anti-terrorism training, experience, and certification. I currently am an emergency manager for a utility company with over 24,000 employees, and I'm their sole instructor on disaster preparedness. So one of the things that we didn't talk about today is that, I tend to gravitate to like-minded people and neighbors, and we're always talking about disaster preparedness and things that we're going to do to help our own community. When you have transients that live in apartments, they're really short-minded. They have a tendency that they rely on the city, and they could possibly gravitate into developments to try and gain sustenance and help for their own well-being and their family. The people that I talk to in my town or in my neighborhood, a lot of them are former law enforcement, a lot of them are former first responders. And quite honestly, with the growth that happened in Meridian, we really don't have the confidence that this city has it in the event that we come into a long-term type of an emergency or a disaster that your citizens are going to have to face. So in developments, single home family units, we pretty much consider our town, our homes as our castle. We have the means to maintain sustenance, disaster supplies. We have garages, we have sheds, and rental units just don't have that space. So now you're bringing in all of these folks that is already in an overpopulated city that perhaps doesn't have the ability to take care of their citizens during long-term disasters. And these folks are going to be passengers and trying to attain some sort of level of benefit and well-being from the city that probably will not be able to provide it to them. So for the safety of these residents that'll possibly be in this community or in this multi-unit dwelling, they're going to come over into our neighborhood and it could get dangerous. And I'm just going to be straight up because they're humans. They're going to look for sustenance. They're going to look for means to take care of their family. And we're going to be protecting our town or our development in our community. So I agree with everything that was said today. I do not concur with this plan, and I propose it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Oh, ma'am, go ahead and come up. Good evening.
Hello.
Name and address, please.
My name's Jennifer Fidoa. My address is 5350 North Ferrara Avenue. From the beginning, well, I think I missed the very first one, but I've been on many of the meetings with Alpha Development, trying to understand what's going to be happening in my neighborhood and to understand where they're coming from. But one thing that's clear to me is that they don't understand where I'm coming from. They don't live here. They're not in my community. What my community looks like to me is me being able to go outside and walk my dog, and it's pretty peaceful. It's quiet. I know all my neighbors. I can send my kids to the pool by themselves. They can ride their bikes around all the time, and I'm not worried about the traffic so much right now. I mean, it's there, but you know, it's not to where I'm telling them that they can't go do things out in the community. The traffic is bad on Gondola during the school hours, but you know, there's a school there. But then I see the impact of having 400 plus additional cars in a parking lot that's on San Vito. They're going to be racing down Gondola to get to Black Cat and using that as a cutoff. And I feel like my child's safety and my quality of life and what I've become accustomed to, and all of our neighbors have become accustomed to, is going to go away. And I just think that is a fact. I mean, we've heard so many statistics tonight, and I appreciate all of those, but I also want everybody to understand that everybody's hearts are in this community, and at the root of everything, this is going to impact our quality of life and our community and how we interact with each other, the safety of our children, which to me is the utmost reason, but it had already been spoken about so many times. But I just want to know that my family is safe, that we're not having to watch out for cars racing around all the time, and people aren't watching out for them because maybe they're only going to be living there for 6 months or a year, and they don't have as much invested in this neighborhood as we do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ma'am, go ahead. Joy, we'll try to get to Dan next online. Yep, thank you.
Hi, Stacy Chris, 4902 North Botticelli Avenue, Bridge Tower West.
You want to pull the mic a little closer to you?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm short.
I only say it if I have trouble hearing you, I know we're going to hear.
Okay. So 4902 North Botticelli, my home is directly the very intersection as when they come on San Vito Way to Apgar. My backyard is the corner lot, and that intersection is mostly affected. I would like to invite every one of you to come sit in my backyard with me someday. We put a lot of money and effort into our home, and I think that the majority of people here in Bridge Tower West have done so as well. The other thing I would like to discuss that no one here has discussed tonight is our natural resources. We live in a high country desert. We have water issues. And if we continue to build in this area and have high density, we will not have water to survive. I'm going to tell you that because I'm a nurse. And guess what's the only thing you have to have in life to survive is water. So with the overabuse of these natural resources and this particular issue with the high density, and my husband spoke, their website says 225 units, but they're presenting to us tonight 239, I believe. So I would ask that we very well consider as our whole community, not just our area, but the city of Meridian that we love and adore, and we're raising our families in. Consider the lack of building because of greed, because this is what it is. We don't want to become a city that a lot of people here left from. Not me, I'm from here. But this is different. They left those places because of those problems that are presented tonight. So the other thing too, if this proceeds, the building, they don't need to come into our subdivision. There's not a reason. There's areas from 10 Mile and there's areas from McMillan that they can access this subdivision. The area from Gondola could be a walkway. They can still get their children to school because the rest of the area people walk their kids and drive bikes. So that's why we do not need continued more and more traffic in that area. The Costco apartments right down the road, those are going up. Down McMillan is all the subdivisions going up. We have at the end of I-84 10 Mile, all of those apartment buildings going up. Down Prelude, down Ustick, Linder, all of those are going up. Chendon. We are growing without being realization of our natural resources. And so I would suggest that we look at that for future planning prior to continuing to approve building. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Joy, if you want to go ahead and.
Yes, is there online? We have a Dan Buffum.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead and state your name and
All right.
address for the record. And
Yeah, Dan Buffum, 3554 West Balducci Street, Meridian. I live in Bridge Tower West, obviously. I've spoken every meeting that you guys have had. Only reason I'm not there today, I don't know if you, well, not that you know my voice, but I had an incident and I have all my top of my teeth ripped out about 4.5 hours ago, but I feel it's necessary that I still speak during this last meeting here. I found it interesting today that that I read 183 homes are in Bridge Tower West and on 54 acres. And the Alpha Development wants to put in this many units, 235, I believe it is, on 16 acres. And what is the aerial view going to look like? It's literally like slamming this small, dense community in the middle of a bigger, nicer community. Also, I believe it was 1.5 years ago, the Bridge Tower West developer, I forgot his name, Mike something or other, wanted to build more denser homes, and you guys flat out denied that. And I think they wanted to rezone it there to something else, but it was flat out denied because of its density. Yet we're doing something 1/4 mile away. We're still considering this. The other thing is I, like my neighbor that just spoke, I would invite the city council and Alpha Development to come over, hang out in our backyard. We've put tens of thousands of dollars into it. And I look right at the corner. Our house is the Keystone lot that looks on the corner of Vincenza and McMillan. And just sit there and watch the traffic. Come over for dinner, come over for breakfast, either way. And you will see all the close calls. I just had to go get my narcotics, I guess, from Walmart. And it took me almost 10 minutes at 5 o'clock to get across that street without trying to get killed. So I think I've sent in a letter and I've sent in, I've spoken many times, and I invite you to come and just watch, look at the neighborhood, look at the difference of, the cobblestone streets, the bigger lots, the everything that's going to get literally destroyed. The other comment is, I know one of my neighbors said that they're putting a parking lot on the west side over there, on San Vito, and they want to flip it. And even if you flip it, you're going to have the same, but worse, because now you have a Walmart coming out into that Vincenza McMillan area. Why can't we wait until this output is, or the exit and entrance area is gone through? Vincenza goes out to 10 Mile, because that would solve a lot of these problems. I mean, the density is still a problem that needs to be reduced. And I implore you to deny this because of the density alone and the safety of it. But if there was another redirecting that out someplace else, you wouldn't have this issue. And that's really all I wanted to say.
thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sir, if you want to go ahead and come on up.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Tari Molifua. I'm with Ball Ventures. Address is 2194 Snake River Landing, Snake River Parkway, Idaho Falls, Idaho. I just wanted to address, appreciate you hearing the application. There's a lot of, you can tell that there's a lot of concern from the community. I think it's important to maybe just try and address some of those concerns from Ball Ventures standpoint. Ball Ventures is a capital partner. You might have seen some of our signs and made recognition with Ball Ventures Alquist. Mr. Parsons, if you wouldn't mind, there's a slide that maybe precedes this just a little bit. I want to just address two things really quickly. First,
Yeah, I was going to say he has the ability to speak. He is an individual. Thank you.
two quick things. I've heard a lot of people talk about their investment as an individual. I would dare say that probably nobody's invested more in the city of Meridian over the last 5 years than Ball Ventures has. Included in some of those things, Mr. Parsons, if you'd go up maybe to the top, like third slide, just wanted to make this connection. Ball Ventures has been the capital provider for things like Eagle View Landing, for parts of 10 Mile Crossing, for active adult communities like Bree, and we've brought co-working facilities to Eagle View Landing. Shields was brought by Ball Ventures. And I just wanted to make the connection to this is a alpha development project, but we are a capital partner to them. And so the idea that we're not invested or we're not from Idaho is false. Also, when you think about it, the 235 units, I think 70% of those are studio units. It was just kind of cruising through Zillow, Bridgewater West. Those are about 4 to 5 units per acre. If you did kind of a bedroom count, not a unit count, but you looked at how many bedrooms are being developed on this site, it's about 21 to 22 bedrooms per acre. If you were to kind of impute that to the single family residents and the density that they have, doing quick math, average of 4 units for every 5 lots per acre, that's 20 units. The density is actually very similar when it comes to actual bodies who will be occupying this facility. And I think that was also part of the mindset of the development group. So appreciate being able to make those 2 points, and am in favor of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Em, go ahead and come on up. Hi, what's name and address? Thank you.
I'm Pam Jensen. I'm at 3833 West Daphne Street in Meridian, there in Bridge Tower West. And I have a question for the alpha development, but I also would like to express just a little bit of an understanding that Bridge Tower West is divided by McMillan. And so the community on the other side of McMillan shares the things on the other side. So we're split, and we're having something go in on the edge of it. And it just causes a lot more activity than what we can pretty much handle for a 2-lane road. So when Alpha Development has the opportunity to discuss, would they please clarify if the development is all farmhouse style or combined with any stacked flats that they showed earlier? I know you have a picture, a couple, but thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Ma'am, go ahead and come on up.
Hello, I'm Amber Bach. I live at 3894 West Viso on the south side of the neighborhood. We've been in Idaho for a little over a decade, but I'm from Texas, and
Looks like we need to mute Mr. our online. There we go. Thank you.
I grew up in Texas, though, and I grew up in some areas that saw a lot of rapid growth very quickly, particularly Sugar Land, Texas. I don't know if you've heard of Sugar Land, Texas. I also lived in San Antonio, and before becoming a PA, I worked for the Alamo Area Council of Governments, and I worked with the city of San Antonio, Bexar County, the state of Texas at trying to work with walkable communities, and I did a lot of walkable communities workshops. We found very quickly with the rapid development coming in that when it was happening very fast, it became a problem with, of course, traffic, the Edwards Aquifer, routes to school. It was encouraging people to drive, not walk or bike. There was just really poor planning at the very beginning. And we quickly learned that we had to start thinking and putting in some infrastructure ahead of time in conjunction with the pace of the growth. And one thing that we started to do, or that if I can recall, they started requiring developers donate land for schools because the growing of schools and the money for bonds to build schools became a problem. So they actually had developers donate land to approve developments in West San Antonio. And, you know, I know people have said this before, but I'm a little bit doubtful of projects that have already been committed to getting complete. One of them being the crosswalk there at McMillan that crosses from our neighborhood to the pool, to the school. Every morning, my kids and I, you know, not me, but my husband or I, one of the two of us, wait for traffic. There's no safe place to cross. And I went back and forth with the highway district and the school district, and I think everybody's short-staffed, there's no money. I basically got that it's the responsibility of West Ada to be putting in that crosswalk. This was agreed to in 2019. We're in 2022, and we don't have the one at Black Cat or the one at that crosses McMillan. So just as a parent, I'm thinking, wow, like, you know, is this ever going to get done? There's not any plans in place. So I feel like we're already struggling. And then my biggest concern is just bringing in development really fast. You don't have the infrastructure. It could take 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And it is a safety issue. Also, my daughter is likely going to be moved out of her classroom already because of the growth of the school. And schools are tricky here. It's hard to fund schools. They're crowded and there's no safety net. There's no limit of 25. They'll put 36 kids in a class. And like other states, there's limits. And there's no one that wants to own that. There's no safety net. There's no saying this isn't okay. It's just, well, this is how it is. So we're going to put 36 kids in your kid's class until we can find another teacher. So here she is starting school and she's probably already going to be assigned a new teacher. And it's just these kinds of things. I don't know. I feel like I'm having to supplement at home with schoolwork, and it's just hard as a working parent and a taxpayer. I'd like to see a little bit more thought and infrastructure put in before we jump into building so quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else want to raise a hand out there? Going once, going twice? If anybody else online would like to testify, please press the raise hand button. Yep. Nope. Sorry, your 3 minutes is up. Right. Seeing none, if commissioners don't have any other comments or questions or anything along those lines, we can close the public testimony, or we can keep it open for a while if you'd like to go in that direction.
Close the public testimony.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman over here.
Go ahead.
We should offer the opportunity for the applicant to rebut first before we.
You are
close.
absolutely correct. Sorry, Kurt. So the applicant would like to come up for, sorry about that.
We appreciate your counsel. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Jeffrey Wardle. My address is 251 East Front, Boise. I am counsel for the applicant, but I'm also a proud resident of Meridian and a longtime resident of Paramount. And I have been attending meetings in your jurisdiction for nearly 25 years as we work on development applications. And so I appreciate Bill having this site plan up because this is the fundamental issue here. Understand the concerns. This is a high growth community and we appreciate the diversity that all of our new friends from California bring us. But the reality is we need all kinds of housing, not just detached single family residences like you find in Bridge Tower and Bridge Tower West. But let's not lose sight of the fact that Bridge Tower is a master plan project that was subject to a master development agreement nearly 15 years ago when it started down the pike, and we ended up in 2010 with a development agreement for 300 acres. So the benefits that the testimony you've heard tonight includes this element. The planning has been done for years. When we talk about installing infrastructure, part of the reason that ACHD is not exacting more here is because the developer has built the collectors that serve this project. Now, we've heard a lot of communication and a lot of comments tonight that evidence a lack of understanding of what Meridian code and Meridian planning does. So as we look at this concept plan, and we look at the concept plan that was approved in 2010, connectivity in these 1 square mile blocks in North Meridian have always been part of the plan. Part of the plan in Bridge Tower, part of the plan in Locksaw Falls, part of the plan in Paramount. Part of the plan is to have a diversity of housing types and commercial nodes, and that's what we have. We have had Walmart here, and you probably know my colleague Heath Clark. We have worked this site for years as we represented the Walmart developer in that project, and we've represented various individuals that have analyzed this site prior to Alpha Development and Ball Ventures. And what was clear from the city council was we approved a development agreement with an intention as to density that matches a comprehensive plan that includes a mixed use element that demands higher density residential. Why? Because this residential use here is A, needed, and B, it's a buffer to the more intensive commercial use to the east. Additionally, a lot of the complaints that you've heard tonight about access and traffic on McMillan are ultimately minimized when you get the final development pursuant to the development agreement that was started in 2010 and has been modified various times. Because those trips that you've heard about having to go out to Walmart no longer have to make the turn onto McMillan, but can utilize the internal collectors. Now, what is missed by many who move to our community is we do charge impact fees for roadways, but we exact collectors and we exact right-of-way for frontage for arterials. We unfortunately do not charge impact fees for schools, which is something that we've talked long with the West Ada School District that needs to be done. But you were here as I represented a property owner farther to the west as we dealt with the consequences of Oahe High School being built as far out as it is. But what's really important to note is when Highway 16 is extended, and that is completed here in the next 3 to 4 years, in time as we deal with this, McMillan is disconnected from McDermott. When we look at the plan, the traffic on McMillan is the local traffic. It's no longer that traffic filtering off of Shindon to get to I-84 to 10 Mile. So we are here, and I am proud to say that Alpha Development and Ball Ventures, yes, they came to the city council. They asked to modify the development agreement. The city council told us to go build what had been approved, and consistent with our investment-backed expectations, we came forward with a site plan that is consistent with the zoning, consistent with the comprehensive plan, and consistent with the development agreement. And this is a time where frequently, as we represent clients in these matters, we know our clients are going to try to get creative, and they do. And that's what they did. City council didn't like the creativity, said build what was there, because what was originally proposed addresses that connectivity. And I understand the concerns, but all the concerns you've heard about traffic tonight on Vincenzo and going back up to the school, that's existing neighbors. That's existing neighbors, much like in my neighborhood, speeding down the roads where the kids walking to Paramount Elementary go. We all collectively have to change our behavior. But if we do not have the continuum of housing that includes townhouses, that includes flats, that includes these elements, you end up with a mismatched balance, and you end up with a tax base that is skewed too heavily in the direction of single-family residential. And let's not lose sight of the fact that as you heard today, a significant number of these units are 1-bedroom and studios. I personally wish we never came forward with applications that were 1 bedrooms and studios that were 70% that way. You know why? That guarantees that families aren't going to live in them. Those are young professionals, those are single people, those are retirees. Much like my parents who lived in an apartment in Paramount as they worked on building a house. Those are the kinds of individuals that buy in our community. They rent in our community. They live in our community. My Air Force son, my nurse daughter will not be moving back to Meridian right now because A, our multifamily density is less than 5% for apartments, and our single family residential prices, because of the type of product that has been built, do not afford our critical employees, the nurses, the CNAs, the paraprofessionals at schools, those to be able to live. They end up commuting. So I'm proud of this application. We comply with the comprehensive plan. We comply with the development agreement. The points of connectivity through this project solve many of the problems and are part of that master plan for Bridge Tower. And with that, if you have any further questions about the design or what we've done, we have done our absolute best to come forward with an application that is absolutely consistent with the development agreement that's been approved and the requirements of your zoning ordinance. And that's one of the disconnects. And I talked to your council about it. I talked to your staff. One of the problems we have in Meridian is we end up with development agreements that have too much specificity on site plans because the 2010 site plan cannot be built pursuant to your code. It doesn't have the requisite amount of open space. It doesn't have the requisite clearance for fire. It doesn't have those elements. Yet we've come forward with an application that has made appropriate modifications under the code to address that. So this is pretty straightforward. You guys know it. We know it. I understand the frustration the community has. I really wish that multifamily applications were administratively level approved in this city. There is really no reason why we have to make every single multifamily application be a war, because these are our friends. These are our grandparents. These are our kids. And, you know, I end up carrying applications like this all over this valley. And I am tired of it, to be honest, because I'm tired of how we denigrate people who rent. It is just,
sir,
it is, you have heard it tonight. You're hearing it now. Who rents? We all rented. We all rented at one point in our lives. Not everybody can own, and especially Idahoans are being priced out of the market largely because of individuals who have cashed out of bigger markets. And so we need the continuum of housing. We need a variety of housing types. This is a site that since 2010, the city of Meridian had designated as appropriate for multifamily of this density. We ask for your approval. Thank you.
Sir. So I'll ask my commissioners if you have any questions of the applicant, please say so now.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Commissioner Yearsley.
Sorry, the first resident that spoke on the traffic study, I wouldn't mind having the applicant explain that, and maybe also for commissioner or for staff. Has ACHD approved that traffic study?
Commissioner Yearsley, members of the commission, we can address that. Yes, ACHD has approved the TIS for this application. The original initial testimony ignored the fact that, in fact, this utilized multifamily counts and also evidenced a lack of understanding of how traffic engineering works. I appreciate the fact that he sat out and counted cars. But when we talk about counting cars, we look at a specific window, the PM peak hour, which is 4 till 6 p.m., and we evaluate based upon entry and departure. So ACHD approved the staff report, the TIS. ACHD indicated that McMillan currently operates at better than level of service E, and that this will not cause it to go beyond that level of service. So we are comfortable that the traffic engineers who prepared the TIS and the traffic engineers at ACHD who reviewed it did their jobs correctly, appropriately, and consistent with ACHD policy and best practices underneath the ITE manual, which is the basis for which we get the traffic data.
Okay. Commissioner Larcher, go ahead.
In regard to the products that you had, it's been mentioned a couple of times that it was 26 studios, 136 singles, 56 two bedrooms, and 26 three bedrooms. I don't know if that adds up to the number or not, but that's what I wrote down. And then one of the buildings would be a 3-story and the others would be 2 stories.
Correct.
Are all these products all rentals, or are there home ownerships like through like a townhouse type product?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, this is a for rent product. And to your question, yes, the larger building on the south is the taller building, and then the northern building is the townhouse style, but it is all intended to be for rent. And there are certain benefits that come from that. One, we can ensure landscape maintenance, and we can ensure maintenance of all of the amenities. We can also better manage the behaviors and conduct. And most importantly, as we look at this, because it is multifamily, it will not qualify for homeowners exemptions, and it will pay taxes at a higher per unit rate than the single family residences that you find currently that are owner occupied.
Mr. Chair, one more question.
Go ahead.
I know you can't give an exact amount, but what's the price range are you looking at for the studios, 3 bedrooms?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to have to invite my client back up to talk about the economics.
You want to go ahead and give us your name and address one more time? Sure. Thank you.
All right. Dustin Hole, Alpha Development Group, 166 South, 14,000, 166 East, 14,000 South, Draper, Utah. We're looking at, so one of the reasons we wanted to look at this, as has been shared, is creating as broad of brush stroke for residents and for that various housing stock. So studios to 3-bedroom units, $1,400 to over $3,000 a month in rent.
Thank you.
While I'm here, there was a note.
Sir?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. You've answered the
Okay,
question.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Commissioner Yearsley or any of our other commissioners, do you have any further questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Larcher, go right ahead.
There was some testimony today about things about Ada County School District, about Highway 16, about portables. I heard the note from the teachers, or the principal, but those particular agencies aren't here to be able to verify that information. So I live at the corner of Ustick and McDermott, where Highway 16 is impacted. And I know for a fact that McMillan is not a collector for Highway 16. It's going to be a bridge going across it and you go under it. So traffic for Highway 16 will not be, Ustick is going to take the brunt of that. But I think when it comes to things about the school district and ITD, we should really have those people here speaking of those things, because there was some misinformation given tonight.
And I completely understand what you're saying, but like all applications, what we have to go on is what in the public file. So if ACHD puts on record that the roads can handle it, they own the roads. We do not. If West Ada School District puts out that there's capacity, they own the schools. We do not. So if anybody wants to debate that, there are other hearings to debate that at. Unfortunately, our hands are tied. So that's the only comment that I'll put out about that.
And did Ada County, West Ada School District say that the capacity would be manageable in the application?
What West Ada puts, well, I was going to say, we can all go back and we can read the report. So
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. That's okay. Everybody calm down. Well, I have a couple questions myself. I just want to make sure that we clear all questions because I do not want to reopen the public hearing on this when we're done. So for the EV charging, is that going to be a charge for the spaces?
That's a business point question.
Okay, the applicant's indicating no.
The client indicated no.
Okay, so San Vito Way for And I say this because I'm one of those interlopers that rides through the neighborhood and enjoys the parks that they have in there, because it is part of our pathway system. Is there a possibility of putting in a stoplight at San Vito Way for McMillan at all? I mean, to me, because it's part of the parks and pathways, I don't understand why there's not something going in there.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, obviously, we are amenable with the staff's conditions and requests on enhancing the parkway and pathways there. Certainly, if we have put the stop signal crosswalks that we have at various places on Linder and McMillan farther to the east, there should be no reason that can't be here. But to your point, it has to be warranted by ACHD, and they didn't feel that it was warranted with this application. It certainly may be warranted in the future. And as the CIP for McMillan, yes, it doesn't get wide until 2031 or later, but there are a variety of improvements along McMillan intended to address the issue of walkability and to make those streets more livable that are programmed.
Okay, can you speak to the traffic mitigations that are going to be put in on that cross-section street that connects the two roads?
Mr. Chairman, I mean, obviously ACHD and your staff had two primary considerations with respect to traffic mitigation. One was to provide that westbound turning lane, which we can and will. And then the second is ensuring that there's a connection that connects the commercial property to the east with the existing alignment of Milano back to the west. We have designed it, and we will, to stub it if it can't be done with the adjoining property owner, but the adjoining property owner obviously has future development plans and obligations, and it's just an issue of the fact that you want that to align. So we believe that is a significant portion of the traffic mitigation, because it eliminates those trips out to McMillan solely to go to Panda Express.
Okay. Last question for you here. So, and I speak because we're trying to prevent wars, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, biggest war I see in subdivisions are pools. I hate pools. So, because they're always a point of contention, there's never enough. They're always overcrowded, so on and so forth. Would you consider something along the lines of a water park instead that can be larger and more accommodating for the folks that are there to use? Oh,
sorry.
That's okay.
Mr. Chairman, commissioners, we know that the issue of amenities in these types of developments in Meridian are always a point of significant conversation and significant discussion. What is appropriate? How do we get there? Recognizing the nature of this site plan, recognizing what was previously addressed, recognizing the fact that this is a for rent product, not like so many of our neighborhoods with an HOA managing multiple pools with that degree of volume. I think the amenity package that our client has proposed is appropriate for this use and is appropriate for this group. And I think it's also important to note that we have provided a significantly greater number of amenities than are required. And to the extent that there's concern that residents of this development will be utilizing, the pools in Bainbridge West, that's not going to happen. And they're not going to utilize the pools here. They're going to be able to utilize, the open space. That's part of the reason the mixed use designation contemplates multifamily, is to provide that connectivity for pedestrian activity, provide greater open space. And those are the amenities that I think are going to be generally available. But if our client has determined that pools are appropriate for this type of multifamily product, we think the market will tell us if it's not, and it may become a skate park in 10 years.
Exactly. So, okay. Any other questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Yearsley? You can cough if you want to signify no.
Sorry.
That's okay.
No, I'm good.
Okay. With that, thanks, sir. Appreciate it. And I'll take a motion to close the public hearing for file number H 2022-0047.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing for file number H 2022-0047. All in favor, say signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Did I get an aye? Okay. All ayes. Motion passes. Who would like to go first? Oh, actually, that's a great idea. So we're going to pause here for 5 minutes for a quick bio break, and we will be back to wrap up our conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought about that.
please. All right, thank you all very much. We've had a lot of questions, and our attorney has helped a few folks out and answered some questions and stuff, but I'd like to give you the opportunity to kind of explain our purview, basically, as a commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kurt Starman with the City Attorney's Office. So I'll start, this has already been discussed to a large extent, but just to reiterate and recap, I suppose, I was having this discussion with a couple of folks during the break. In terms of, what is the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission with respect to this application? So we've talked about much of that, both the applicant and staff, and to some extent the commissioners themselves. So we talked about the development agreement, the zoning, the comprehensive plan, and things of that nature. So I think we've covered those bases well, and that's certainly within the purview of the commission. The part we haven't talked about as much, and as I was looking at the staff report as well, it's all there, but it's just not nicely packaged. And so I thought it might just be helpful for everybody just to kind of discuss the parameters with which the commission is operating. So in addition to things like I've already mentioned, the comprehensive plan and zoning, in Meridian's code, we talk about for conditional use permits, here are the findings that you as a body have to make in order to approve a conditional use permit. And there are a couple that are not going to be applicable to this particular application, but I think it might be helpful. It's difficult to do verbally. It'd be nice to have perhaps a visual, but I don't have that in front of me. So I'm going to just sort of read this, but I think it might be helpful to understand, what are these are essentially questions that you're tasked with to answer, yay or nay, and depending on your answers, that will lead to your ultimate decision as to approve the application or not, or to ask for additional information. So I'm going to do that real quickly with the understanding it's difficult to do in a verbal way, but I'll do the best I can. And I might highlight the ones I think might be most applicable to your discussion this evening based upon testimony, both from the applicant and from the public, and then also based upon questions from the commissioners as well. So the language is found for those that are like to maybe look at this later or want to track along at home and so forth. This is found in the city's Unified Development Code, and it's codified at, so I'm just getting this out of the way. No one cares about this except for those that are interested in that. It's codified at 11-5B-6, and it's titled Conditional Uses. And it says this, these are the questions that you're tasked with. The commission shall, this is mandatory. These are your parameters, your decision-making parameters. The commission shall base its determination on the conditional use permit request upon the following. And so here are those questions essentially, or issues that you're going to look at. Thank you, Bill. What a good guy. See, Bill's always got my backside. So Bill is putting the code up on the screen as I speak, but I'm gonna go ahead and read them as well, but I appreciate the visual aid. So the first is that the site is large enough to accommodate the proposed use and meet all the dimensional and development regulations in the district in which the use is located. I haven't heard any testimony this evening from the applicant or from the public, and there's nothing in the staff report that leads me to think that might be an issue, but that's a finding you have to make, number one. Number two, that the proposed use will be harmonious with the Meridian Comprehensive Plan and in accord with the requirements of this title. So you have analysis in your staff report that talks about the comprehensive plan, and from staff's perspective, staff has indicated that based on their analysis, on its analysis, that they believe that this application does comply with the comprehensive plan. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that's for you as the commission to make that determination. You have analysis from the staff. That's for you to determine, however, as the decision-making body this evening. So that's item number two. Item number three, that the design, construction, operation, and maintenance will be compatible with other uses in the general neighborhood and with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity, and that such use will not adversely change the essential character of the same area. So there's probably, I would think it's fair to say there's probably a lot of testimony and information that may be centered around that issue. So again, you'll need to consider that testimony and the information before you, the record is before you, and you make your own decision on that. But that item might require some deliberation. The next sub 4 talks about that the proposed use, if it complies with all conditions of the approval imposed, will not adversely affect other property in the vicinity. So again, that's one you may want to deliberate. You've heard testimony about that either directly or indirectly, and so for the commission to decide whether that finding can be made. Number 5, that the proposed use will be served adequately by essential public facilities and services such as highways. I'm going to emphasize streets and emphasize schools, parks, police and fire protection, drainage structures, refuse disposal, water and sewer. So you have both testimony this evening, also lots of information in the record, including reports from the West Ada School District and from the Ada County Highway District that address some of the issues, all the issues really that were presented this evening. So you have lots of material to look at, both in the record, testimony tonight, but that's an item that we've heard a lot about this evening, and the commission will need to make its own assessment as to that finding that's required. The proposed use will not create excessive additional costs for public facilities and services and will not be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. We've probably heard some indirect testimony about that this evening, again, for the commission to decide. That number 7, that the proposed use will not involve activities or processes, materials, equipment, and conditions of operation that will be detrimental to any person's property or the general welfare by reason of excessive production of traffic, noise, smoke, fumes, glare, or odors. So you've heard some testimony about that this evening. There may be information in the record that you may want to rely upon as well, but so that's item number 7, might require some deliberation. Item 8, I do not believe is relevant for this particular discussion, although there was some discussion about natural resources, so let me just read it to make sure. That the proposed use will not result in the destruction, loss, or damage of a natural, scenic, or historic feature considered to be of major importance. Again, for the commission to decide, I don't think we have much, if any, testimony in that regard, but again, that's for the commission to decide. And then lastly, the last item there is not relevant as pertaining to non-conforming uses, which is not applicable to this application. So I just thought it might be helpful for all of us to take a step back and think about what are the parameters that the commission has to work within. And those are the findings really at the end of the day, when you make your finding, either yes, this application ought to be approved, or no, it ought not be approved. These are the findings that you need to make, either yay or nay, that would support that type of decision. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions. Of course, Mr. Parsons has a ton of expertise here, so he and I are both happy to answer questions that you might have.
Very much appreciate that. Thank you. Bill, is there anything you wanted to add on that? Okay.
Well, just a small commentary on it, but to Kurt's point, with staff's recommendation, we did look at those findings and we do add analysis in there for you as well to tell you that we did find that it does meet some of that criteria, and therefore we did support the application. So that's what we do. We analyzed it. We gave you the staff report, the analysis. We looked at the agency comments as well, analyzed that, and then based that recommendation for approval based on all the information that was gathered as part of the process.
Okay. Thank you. All right, and with that, any of the commissioners like to go first with the discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley, please go ahead.
There was a lot of testimony today.
Yes, sir.
This is awesome. I like that we have people contributing and sharing their concerns and issues. I appreciate all the lectures we've received tonight and how to, proceed forward with this. It's great to always get back to what our job is to do. I'm just going to be blunt. Do I like this project? No, not really. Is it better than most? Yeah, it is. I like that they have a lot of open space. I like that they have the amenities and stuff like that. I think it's a reasonable area to put this project. Does it meet the code? In my opinion, yes. it meets what the city has asked for and everything. Will it cause traffic? Yes. You know, we, as a city, we are growing. You know, it's a great place to live. People want to move here. And unfortunately, it's causing prices to go up. And my kids can't afford to live here anymore, so they're moving away. And unfortunately, that's what's happening, is we're having to build something that's more affordable for others to live. And so with that, I would approve this application.
Thank you, Commissioner Easley.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lurcher, go right ahead.
I am on the fence on this one. I understand the concerns of the community with the increase in traffic and our infrastructure, especially in that corner of Meridian, has not kept up to the growth that we have done. I will tell the people here that that corner is ideal for multifamily housing. So if it doesn't happen today, it's going to happen sometime, because it's a great buffer between commercial and your single family housing, so that you don't have the loading docks of Walmart in your backyard. Having high growth diversity, I think in all corners of our neighborhood's important. I think a young professional, a retired person who wants a studio, my daughter who's starting out at first to be able to rent in an area near that area would be someplace ideal that she would like to be in. And to be able to tell her she can't because it doesn't fit into the way the neighborhood works is not creating community, it's creating divisiveness. So I agree with Mr. Wardle that we do need alternative and diversified housing elements throughout our entire community, not just along I-84. The rents that they are suggesting from $1,400 to $3,000 a month is probably not a transient family. It's a family that, you know, may be working across the country, a traveling, you know, somebody in sales and they move to different communities. It's definitely more than my mortgage right now here in Meridian. So I don't think I'd be able to afford to live in there. But with that in mind, the fact that we have denied a few other subdivisions along that corridor because of the high volume and the fact that the infrastructure is not there tends to lead me to either deny it or possibly continue to be able to work out some design things as far as the way the layout is. It fits. They've followed the rules. They've done their homework. It's all within our parameters of code, but just because it fits doesn't mean it should. So I haven't decided yet. Your comments outside the parameters are not helpful. And it's something, as we talk about it tonight, I'll have to think about.
Thank you. Commissioner Stoddard, go right ahead.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I too am on the fence about it. You know, I have, you know, I never like to see really high density stuff coming in. I have issues living in Meridian with shopping and different things like that. But I also have adult children who have been struggling to find places to live and, you know, have been going back and forth with possibly having adult children living with me, which is not what I want. But so the idea of having affordable housing for them too is also appealing to me. And again, you know, within what we're supposed to decide, I think, you know, a lot of the things fall within, you know, the guidelines of what they're supposed to be following. And again, I agree with Commissioner Yearsley that I don't necessarily like the high density stuff, but, you know, the design is a little better than most. I do like the open space. And yeah, that's kind of, I'm again on the fence about it a little bit myself as well.
I'll just chime in with, I mean, there's, as far as the multifamily development part of this goes, I I really like the product that you're proposing here. I think it, the amount of open space, the connectivity within it and all that are, I think they're great. So I do think that, and I say this because of the Parks and Pathways system that's in place. I mean, part of one of the conditions that's put in the report is that you have to provide the 10-foot pathway in order to continue the Parks and Pathway. That goes across McMillan. Period, end of story. That is where it goes. I ride it all the time. So that's, my opinion is that that should be put in. I don't know if that's something that we can put in, and we'll probably have a further discussion about that, but to me, it just absolutely makes sense to put that in there. There's a lot of people that are asking for it, not just for bikeability and walkability, but for the safety of kids going, you know, in and out. And the fact that the subdivision was divided with McMillan, to me, is a head scratcher. How that was allowed to happen without some kind of stoplight intersection is beyond me, but luckily I wasn't here to approve that. So I do agree. My son is one of those vagrants that, you know, transients out there that live in apartments and stuff simply because he can't afford to buy his own house, even though he continues to save what he thinks is 20% down, and the goal keeps moving. So he's an engineer out at Micron, makes good money, can't afford to live in Meridian. So do we need affordable stuff? Yes. Do I think this is affordable? No. He lives in Boise because he can't find anything that's affordable in Meridian. That includes rentals. So that's a problem overall. So I don't think this has anything to do with affordable housing personally. So unfortunately, because we've had so many people that love this area move into it and pick your place, I don't care where you're from. I was lucky enough to buy a decade ago, so I don't have this problem. My mortgage is less than the rent you're proposing for a 1-bedroom apartment. So that's an issue. I don't know how we solve that issue, but it's an issue. So, you know, as far as the schools go, if you've moved here in the last decade, our schools are overcrowded, period, end of story. You might have known that moving in, you might not, but the information was there. It's been there. When you moved into the subdivision that you're in, most of you are in the same subdivision, your kids go to Star Middle School. Last time I checked, Star Middle School is 7 miles away from your subdivision. There are 2 other middle schools that are closer than that. So our schools are overcrowded. And I say that both for both sides. Our schools are overcrowded. It is a fact. So it doesn't matter if we have multifamily, or if we have single family, or if we have people living in huts. They're overcrowded. More people is not the solution. All of us contributed to that, whether we like to admit it or not. Our schools are overcrowded because we overcrowded them. One of the things I'll say about like I iterated before, we have to go on the reports that are given out by the schools. Yes, the schools are saying they're overcrowded. They're not telling us to stop. Unfortunately, they don't. They can't. So that's the way that the state works. So we all enjoy having a balanced budget. I do. Love living in a place that doesn't owe money. Unfortunately, that comes with some drawbacks. The drawbacks are we don't spend money until we have money to spend. The way we have money to spend is you put more people in. You put more people in, you draw more taxes, you pay your bills. That's the side effect of this. So we're getting more houses, we're getting more taxes, we're going to get more schools. We're just outpacing the growth that they're capable of keeping up with. So, and as far as McMillan, it's the elephant in the road. McMillan is the most horrible road in Meridian for a lot of different reasons that everybody has already elaborated on. There's huge power poles that are there. There's ditches that are there. Nobody wants to spend the money to widen that thing. So it's a horrible road. Might seem like a nice quiet country road, but it's like Black Cat. So I'm one of the people that, I offend and I cut through neighborhoods because I don't want to have to drive down parts of Black Cat, parts of Ustick. So I go out to Star Road to get to Chinden. I don't touch Black Cat I don't go down Black Cat unless I have to. That's my only option though, sometimes. So I understand. I live in these neighborhoods right next to you guys. So I see it too. Went 2 miles to my dentist this morning. It took me 15 minutes. That's not great. I used to work at HP about 15, 16 years ago. Had a motorcycle. Took me 9 minutes to get to work. That was HP. So, there's a lot of crowding that's going on. I would like to say, hopefully, instead of putting in a pool, you put in a water park or something else, because every time we have meetings about any kind of large development or multifamily, pools are always in contention. There's just never enough room at a pool to put everybody in it. So anything but a pool in my mind. Sorry, I've got a lot of notes here. There was a lot of testimony, so I'm probably going to droll on for a while, but I'm the chair. So I will. Yeah, like I said, the ACHD report's 5 years old data. So, that's kind of tough pill to swallow, but that's the information they gave us. So unfortunately, I think ACHD has kind of failed us again in that. So it's not the first time it's happened. It's not the last time it's going to happen. I recommend that all of you pay attention to what ACHD is putting out. Ask for public hearings. Please start to go to them. Please let them know your concerns. I have the same concerns. I don't think our roads can handle what we're building. But that's not for me to determine. I don't get to sit out on a street side and count cars. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. They own the roads. We do not. So, I understand all of this stuff. And I kind of wish that we weren't doing as much multifamily as we're doing in Meridian, but we're kind of stuck doing it simply because most people can't afford to buy the houses that we're putting in anymore. My house that I bought, a decade ago is worth over $1 million. That is a ridiculous amount of money for my property. I wouldn't be able to live there if I had to buy it today. There's no way. So the option for that is to move to multifamily, where people can at least kind of afford it. Hopefully, maybe. That's about all I got to say. And luckily, I don't have to make a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lurcher, please go ahead.
can I ask the city attorney a few questions?
Absolutely.
So we are, to be clear, we're voting on a CUP, conditional use permit.
That's correct.
And so the development agreement or the zoning of R15 is there. City council said, work with what you have, correct?
Correct. We have an existing development agreement, and from both the planning staff and from the city attorney's office, we have concluded that this application complies with that development agreement. So that's not before the commission this evening. That's not a decision point for you in your deliberations this evening. And as you, Commissioner Lurcher, as you alluded to, the zoning is in place. This property was annexed and zoned some time ago when the development agreement was entered into. And so it has the appropriate requisite zoning for this particular project in terms of density at R15. So that's not an issue before the commission either. So really what's before the commission this evening is a conditional use permit is subject, which is still on the screen and in the screen right before you as well. So that really outlines your decision points in terms of the findings this commission needs to make to say, to approve the application or to deny the application are really confined within that conditional use permit framework. And this is in a situation where the commission is the decision-making body. So your decision tonight it's not a recommendation to the council. This is a decision to approve or to deny the application. Of course, your decision potentially could be subject to appeal by either the applicant or other interested parties, but we'll cross that bridge later if necessary.
So if we approve it, then they work with the city with the development agreement and all of the little nuances that the city planners have asked them to do, like moving a street or not changing parking, but, aligning things. That's something that they continue to work with staff, correct?
To a very limited extent. So I would say if the commission has strong feelings about topics of that nature, I would encourage you to discuss that and deliberate that this evening and potentially include that in your motion, because really, what's before you tonight is the conceptual site plan and an extensive list of conditions. And that site plan and those conditions really reflect the presentation you received this evening. So if you, as a commission, feel there's something of substance that needs to change, you ought to discuss that tonight and incorporate that into your motion. That'd be my recommendation. Staff can make, as we transition, let's say hypothetically, if the commission approved the CUP and the project proceeded, staff can make minor modifications at a staff level with director approval. And of course, there's the certificate of zoning compliance that occurs and design review. And so there's definitely other steps and other changes that will occur, but they won't be substantive changes. So really, that's an issue for the commission. You have to deal with that this evening.
And one final thing, if we deny the CUP, the applicant has the ability to appeal, correct?
That is correct.
And do they have a time frame in which they would come back to the city with a new design plan? Or is there like a time frame where the developer can work with the city on something else? Or once it's denied, they no longer can do this project?
So, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Lorcher, I'm going to rephrase it just a little bit. I think I'll answer your question, but let me just, I won't rephrase, but I'll just answer it this way, that let's say hypothetically, if the commission voted to deny the application, then that could be appealed. That decision could be appealed to the city council, which would consider it anew, sometimes called de novo. And the city council, there wouldn't be a new, at that hearing before the city council, I wouldn't envision a new site plan or new ideas and so forth. Really, it's what's going before, what we come before the council would be to say, this is our application. It was considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission and denied. We appeal that decision. This is our application. We're asking you, city council, to say yes. So I don't envision any significant changes between what the commission does and what the council might do. Now, depending on what the council might do at that point in time, other changes could happen going forward, but I don't envision significant changes between the time of the commission decision and council review of an appeal.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? There are a couple things in here actually that I'd like to address. So there was a few people that were concerned in their testimony about the fire safety, different things like that. So, I mean, one of the things that the fire department's going to require is and that code requires is that this does, dump out onto San Vito Way. So that's going to be required by the fire department. That's going to be required by code. That is just going to be required. So it can lead to cut through traffic. I don't know that anybody would want to turn in, drive through that subdivision and jump onto San Vito Way. I certainly wouldn't, but that's a potential. So again, I'm one of those people that cuts through subdivisions occasionally, knowing that I don't like it to happen in my own, but that's the way that it goes sometimes. So there's also, again, there's the 10-foot pathway that's part of the Parks and Pathway Plan, the major overall Parks and Pathway Plan for Meridian. So that's cutting through here as well. And that's going to that's going to make for some biking connectivity that has been waited for quite a while. So it's pretty expansive. So hopefully, and Bill, I'll ask you, can we provision, can we put a condition in here to have a lighted or a signaled crossing at McMillan as part of the Parks and Pathway Plan? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, I know.
Members of the commission, I wouldn't recommend that. You're going to pit us against two agencies, meaning really it's like as to your point, ACHD has the authority as to what those improvements would be. I think if I'm understanding, you want one of those hawk signals where you can cross. And certainly there's other avenues for that to happen. Either go to ACHD, take the issue up with them, The city does have a transportation commission that you could petition something and have them analyze that or study it. You have the Parks Commission, you can go and talk with them about this issue. But right now, that puts us in a very tough spot to require something like that.
Okay, understood. Commissioners? More discussion or emotion is kind of where we're at. Yeah, this is a tough one for me. So, I mean, it checks all the boxes. But again, you know, we all live in this area. So, or I live in this area, I should say. You know, it's tough to see more traffic coming in, tough to see the schools handle more kids. But it's not preventing anybody from moving here. So,
Mr. Chairman, I thought, I just want to make one comment. See how to phrase this, but I don't want to presuppose how the commission, you know, what the motion may be or what the decision might be, but to the extent, actually this is true in either case, but particularly if the commission has an inclination to deny the application, I would really like to encourage the commission to make reference to the findings required by the code, which are still up on your screen, and to articulate the facts in the record that, you know, give you pause or why you cannot make a particular finding. So it'd be helpful to create a record. If that's, you know, that's where the commission decides to go, it'd be important to both now and then we will adopt findings at a subsequent meeting, but it'd be important to articulate your reasons why you can't make one or more of these findings. That makes sense?
Thank you. I'm all ears, commissioners.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Yearsley, go right ahead.
after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to approve file number H 2022-0047 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of September 1st, 2022 with no modifications.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I would offer two thoughts for you. One is that the chair can second a motion if you want to for the purpose of discussion. You don't need to, number one. Number two, if you don't have a second, then the motion dies and you'll need to move on and seek a alternative motion.
Understood. I am not willing to second it, but I kind of back to leaning towards a continuance at this point. And I'll be clear about this. The only reason I would seek a continuance is just to see what we can do about putting in a signalized intersection there. That's about it. I mean, I've got to be honest, this fits everything else. As far as multifamily goes, it's great. Generally speaking, we are fighting, trying to get open space, trying to get paths, trying to get connectivity, trying to get things like that to go in. I mean, they exceed the parking, they exceed the open space. They've reduced how many stories, you know, that are in there and everything. So that's about the only reason I would lean towards a continuance in this. If that's not in anybody else's appetite, then I would suggest that we move forward with Commissioner Yearsley's motion and somebody second it and we go for it. So is there a second? Okay, seeing no second, motion dies. But that means somebody else gets to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I was interject while there's a short pause as people are pondering this issue. To the extent your fellow commissioners are interested in the idea of the continuance for the reason you articulated, I think that's perfectly acceptable. I just want to give two thoughts. So one is that you'll need to reopen the public hearing, perhaps for that limited purpose of receiving additional information relative to the traffic signal. So we need to reopen the public hearing if you choose to go down that path. And then I think it, you know, probably to the extent the commission wanted to go down that path, I think the nature of the motion essentially would be to direct staff to research that issue more, contact ACHT, contact the school district, work with the applicant and bring information back to you, either at a date certain or however you want to characterize that.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. Commissioner Orchard? Yep, go right ahead.
After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to deny file H 2022-0047 as presented in the hearing of September 1st, 2020. For the following reasons. According to the CUP guidelines, the ACHD study has had too much time to linger based on current conditions. And the increase in traffic, safety, and infrastructure are not adequate at this time.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to deny file number H 2022-0047. All in favor, say aye.
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 Commissioner Yearsley?
Mr. Chairman, you may want to ask for nay votes.
Are there any nay votes? Actually, Madam Clerk. can you take the
Sorry,
roll?
I was on mute.
Okay.
I have a nay vote.
Okay. So that is 2 yeas, 1 nay. Motion to deny passes.
Take it. I didn't catch your vote, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry.
I didn't vote.
You're abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
Let me just think for one moment.
Okay.
Do we have a quorum?
You have a quorum, so a member can abstain. We still maintain quorum. It is, I think when a member abstains, it is a majority of those voting. So 2-1 likely carries the day. I would agree with your conclusion, Mr. Chairman. 2-1 vote would pass the motion.
Okay. So 2-1 vote.
Let me be clear for the record, I guess, for the clerk's office. So what I understand the vote to be is to be 2 votes in favor of the motion, which, and to reiterate, the motion was to deny the application.
Correct.
There's 2 votes to deny the application, 1 vote against that motion, and there's 1 abstention.
Correct. So motion to deny.
Mr. Chair, could we do a roll call vote so we know who did what?
Absolutely. Madam Clerk, do you want to do the roll?
Commissioner Stoddard,
Yea or nay?
Yay.
Commissioner Lorcher,
Yay.
Commissioner Yearsley,
Nay.
and Commissioner Seal.
Abstain. So we have 2 for, 1 against to deny file number H 2022-0047. So the motion to deny passes. Okay. Thank you all.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lorcher, go right ahead.
I motion we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.